see. We'll also be talking with Congresswoman Anna Eshoo and Congressman Sam Farr, Assemblymember John Laird, Scott Kennedy and Emily Reilly from the Santa Cruz City Council, and then folks from different reporters from our listening area. So Eric Johnson from the Monterey County Weekly.
Hi, I'm Geoff Dunn, and on behalf of Community Television of Santa Cruz County, I'd like to welcome you to Election Night 2004. We'll be having 3 hours of local coverage, following closely some of the local election results, and also having a host of guests of local candidates and political activists in our community. Joining me tonight as co-host for the first hour, my longtime pal, John Sandidge.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for being here, bud.
Glad to be here. This is going to sort of wrap it up for you at community television, isn't it? An election night coverage.
Yeah, I'm done after this, John.
Well, you've always been done.
Yeah, I know. My father's I've heard that before, John.
Have you? I was wondering about that. I thought I just thought of it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess a good idea was who's going to be with us tonight here on the show to get started.
Well, during the first hour, we're going to have Sam Farr, Congressman Sam Farr, formerly Assemblyman
Sam Farr, yes.
Yes, Democrat from Carmel, and then Bruce McPherson, State Senator Bruce McPherson, who's winding up his state senate career tonight, and then finally we'll have two members from the Santa Cruz City Council, Ryan Coonerty and Scott Kennedy.
Ryan Coonerty, I'm anxious to meet Ryan. And
you don't know? Yeah.
I've met him briefly, but I'm really anxious to see, because it's sort of the new blood of the community, the new faces coming up, which always exciting. Yeah.
No,
really
this is really time for new generation. I'm pretty sure Ryan's going to be elected tonight. My polls have predicted that. And, also Tony Madrigal, another member of younger generation running. And we really haven't had a lot of that here in Santa Cruz City politics.
Well, we'll talk to some of those a little later on tonight, too. Scott Kennedy will be one of them. So, doing this for you've been doing this for a long time, been the pundit and been the host and been part of this at community television. Wrapping it up, you and Tom Brokaw sort of giving it up at the same time.
Yeah, well, this has been a dream of ours to have local coverage, and this is really our first county-wide election coverage that we've had. We're now in South County on Charter, in Watsonville and Capitola, so on Channel 72 this evening. So really, it's a dream come true, and really it's very important. I was down in Watsonville today, and just having people go down with cameras and care about the election is really very rare down there.
Yeah.
And so it really is a great thing for us.
Well, I think it's great that you've sort of made this happen over the years through community television, and it's growing, and it's really become an important part of our community, because it's gotten to where we know we can always go to community TV and find current things that are happening due to you and your work here. So thanks for your time.
It's really been great staff, great membership, and a great community.
Yeah.
And this is really a great community for having local access television. It was a long time coming, long time overdue, and it's really been wonderful. We started doing first time I met Kathy D'Angelo, one of our producers here tonight, was in the little box that we used to do our programming out of. And now we've got this beautiful studio, and it's going to be a great night. Bruce Bratton's in the house.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. We'll be Brettian. There he is over there. He'll be hosting the second hour with Rachel Ann Goodman of KUSP. Third hour we'll have Deanna Zachary, also KUSP, and our own Mark Halfmoon. And then giving election results from across the county will be Jolt and Joel Domhoff every 15 minutes or so, and we'll be on top of all the elections. There are over 40 elections in the county tonight.
And that's for office. That doesn't include the proposition.
That includes some of the propositions as well. I mean, it's really an enormous ballot. You forget how many people are running all over the county.
Yeah, when we get a little later on tonight, if we have time, Jeff has said that he would explain to us the Indian gaming propositions, both of them, and which way you should have voted on those, because he's the only person in the state that totally understands them. So we're looking forward to that part of the show.
I'm probably the only one who's gambled in all of them.
all the casinos. Yeah. Well, in the time that you've been doing this and part of the local politics, it's been a number of years now, What are some of the highlights that you've seen, that you've gone through, you've been part of?
Well, probably one of the bigger elections was the election of Bruce McPherson, originally to the Assembly, in what was a predominantly Democratic Assembly district. And Bruce will be on tonight. We'll talk about that. Probably the biggest upset I saw was when he beat Gary Patton for that seat. And no one really gave him a chance when he started to run, and that was a big one. Of course, they've been in the 3rd District, Supervisorial District, the Gary Patton elections, and then Marty Wormhout elections have always been big. I've always been a particular fan of Santa Cruz City Council elections, and I've sort of prided myself on being able to pick the winners in those.
Well,
I have to
who are
say,
they?
well, I have to say it's been one of the toughest council elections for me to ever pick. I think it's going to be very tight in the top 2 spots, and I think the 4th spot, there are really 3 or 4 candidates who have a shot for that spot too. We'll talk about that more as the evening goes on, but I think it's going to be a very interesting election. It's been sort of quiet publicly, but behind the scenes there's been a lot of elbowing and scuffling and inside politics going on, and I think very important election. 1998, the pendulum swung way to the left, the election of Keith Sugar, Tim Fitzmaurice, and Chris Crone, and then now I think it's swinging way to the center again. So Santa Cruz City politics have a tendency to do that. We've been through a lot of elections over the years, so I'm particularly interested in that one.
We were talking a little earlier, going back to the days of Marilyn Lidicott and Chris Matthews and that particular part of the history of Santa Cruz politics. And those were some interesting years if you were around then. There was a book by Marilyn Lidicott. What was it? Lida Votes and Lida Quotes.
Yes.
If you ever find a copy of that at a garage sale, pick it up. There was some great stuff in there.
We just had dinner with our pal Chris Matthews over at Tampico next door. I'll miss my dinners at Tampico. That's probably what I'm missing.
There's most about leaving community TV.
And, you know, we were talking about, those were really wild times in Santa Cruz County politics. City politics were freewheeling, too. We've got Bruce Bratton here, and he and I have talked about that before. You know, back in the 70s, it was really contested between the new progressive coalition that formed around the university and the counterculture here, baby boomers coming of age, and the old conservative Santa Cruz politicians who had taken power after World War II. And so it was really nasty battles. Now they're nasty, but they're a little quieter. It's usually amongst progressives themselves.
Infighting amongst themselves.
Yeah, that's what happened around 92, 94, and, you know, we've all been scuffing it up with each other since then.
And always smiling at the end, hopefully.
Not too often. The internecine battle.
So you were leading the national elections. Nobody's going to be smiling. 50% of the country's not going to be smiling after tonight.
That's right.
Or maybe Thursday is what they're saying now. And we will be bringing you coverage of the national and statewide election as we go through the night. When do our first guests arrive?
They'll be here in a minute. Why don't we go over to Joel right now? Joel Domhoff will give us sort of a preview of what we can look for locally in elections this evening. Joel?
Geoffrey, thank you very much. I want to thank you and everyone at Community TV for allowing me to tag along tonight. Our first ever historic night, really, our foray into Capitola and Watsonville. We welcome all of you on Charter Cable, and we welcome everyone on what many consider to be one of the most important election nights in American history. We'll be tracking a host of local, regional, and statewide issues, and also be keeping our eyes on the battle between John Kerry and George W. Bush for the presidency. Californians, of course, went to the polls today to decide a dozen statewide propositions on a variety of topics ranging from stem cell research, health care coverage, and Indian casinos. In the 17th District congressional race, incumbent Sam Farr is expecting an easy contest tonight against a quartet of challengers, including Santa Cruz attorney and Green Party candidate Ray Glock Grunitz. Due to the gerrymandering of Bruce McPherson's current state Senate district, we'll actually be following 2 state Senate races in the region, the 11th District, where Democrat Joe Simidian is expected to take the seat, and the 15th District to the south, where Peg Pinard and Abel Maldonado have been battling it out. In the 27th District State Assembly race, incumbent John Laird is expected to hold his seat against Republican John Barlick, while in the 28th Assembly District, incumbent Democrat Simone Salinas is facing off against Republican Bob Perkins. There are more than 40 local races and ballot measures in Santa Cruz County this year, But without a doubt, the biggest and most controversial one is Measure J, that proposal, of course, to widen Highway 1 and fund other transportation projects through a half-cent sales tax in Santa Cruz County. That measure, of course, will need 2/3 of a majority to pass. There's also a hotly contested supervisorial race in the 5th District between incumbent Mark Stone and Scotts Valley City Council member Stephanie Aguilar. 4 seats are up for grabs on the Santa Cruz City Council. 2 are up in Capitola, 3 in Scotts Valley, and 3 in Watsonville, where incumbent Mayor Judy Daring Nielsen is unchallenged, and where there's a hotly contested race in District 2 between incumbent Richard De La Paz Jr. and former Mayor Oscar Rios. There are also a pair of important tax measures in Capitola and Watsonville, along with a host of county-wide measures that will be following throughout the evening. Many of the candidates that we've discussed will be in our studio tonight, so stay tuned to Community TV, Comcast Channel 26, Charter Cable Channel 72 for the best in local election coverage from Davenport to Watsonville and from Boulder Creek to La Selva Beach. Most people know him as Geoffrey. This teleprompter says Jeff. I just know him as the man. Back to you, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Joel. I'll get even with you for that one. I'm back here with John Sandidge, and we also have our very special guest, Congressman Sam Farr. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
You know, we were just talking during that little break, and you said you're feeling a little uneasy about the national election. What's your sense of things right now?
Well, I was really hoping that we'd be able to take back the House, and we knew that it would be an uphill battle. But we've lost some seats, and good friends who've been out here in California, been in this district, who are members of Congress from Texas. You know, Texas did this, Tom DeLay did this outrageous, almost illegal reapportionment. In fact, the courts have ruled they've got to go back and do it again.
Oh,
but
is that
nonetheless,
right?
they're having this election tonight, and they pitted 5 Democrats in seats that they just possibly, you know, couldn't win. And 3 of the Democrats I heard on the radio coming up here were defeated, incumbent Democrats. So that's sad. That's sad. And I think that, you know, Nancy Pelosi's worked very hard to try to bring back a majority so she could be the first woman speaker in the House of Representatives. And I think right now, as the results are coming in, it's going to look like a real tough to do that now.
Probably won't happen, is what you're saying.
Probably won't happen.
What about this Tom DeLay thing? And he was brought up twice on ethics charges, and he came out and said, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. They didn't call me into the carpet as bad as I thought. Sort of like that was a badge of honor that that didn't happen. What's going to happen to that guy?
Well, the nickname for our governor here in California is the Terminator. The nickname for Tom DeLay, because he was a pest rodent exterminator before he came to Congress, is the Exterminator. And he's trying to exterminate every Democrat there is in the United States by reapportioning congressional seats. I wouldn't be surprised that the next big issue, and it'd be interesting to talk to Bruce McPherson about this, in Sacramento will be an attempt to do an initiative constitutional amendment on reapportionment and to redraw the Assembly, Senate, and congressional districts in California before the next census, which is in 2010. And then the legislature would have to reapportion the state. I think there'll be an attempt by the Republicans nationally to come to California and try to reapportion it by initiative.
I read the Geoffrey Dunn article in the New Yorker about the DeLay reapportionment in Texas. One of the arguments he made was that DeLay never would have thought he could have gotten away with it with a more liberal or left-leaning Supreme Court. How much does the Supreme Court play a role in this reapportionment issue?
Well, it does if you know, each state we have national rules, federal rules, that essentially apply an equity, gender, minority issue. As long as you sort of address those, it doesn't matter where the lines go. It doesn't really matter whether the districts are biased to one party or the other, even though, and so you can draw these gerrymandered lines as long as you just don't cut through an ethnic community. But they're certainly not the kind of lines that the League of Women Voters would draw. It's certainly not the kind that legal or political scholars would draw. They're really drawn just for the purposes of defeating incumbent Democrats.
When you say they can't draw a line to an ethnic neighborhood, how do they determine that?
Well, you take precincts by ethnicity. You can see that from the census data.
And so they you can't do that. Okay?
No, you can't put, for example, if you have a strong district that might be able to elect a African American or Hispanic, you can't draw a line through the middle, so you split the district and say, okay, they'll never be able to elect an African American or Hispanic because we put them into districts where they couldn't get elected. So you can't do can't do that kind. They used to.
Oh, that.
But the laws have changed, and the courts have interpreted those laws to mean that you've got to try to protect ethnicity and some kind of similarity. But look at a good example is look at this state senate race here in California, the Peg Bernard Emil Maldonado Senate race. I mean, look at that district. That district takes in Santa Cruz County to the south of the city, and takes in Watsonville, but doesn't take in the Salinas Valley. Takes in the Monterey Peninsula, but doesn't take in Salinas or King City, and then weaves into San Luis Obispo County all the way down into the southern part of San Luis Obispo County. Just a very strange district. Certainly one where you don't have a coastal legislator anymore. And you look at the history of this district in the state legislature, you've had Don Grunsky, who's been a strong coastal legislator, certainly Henry Mello. Bruce McPherson was always probably the Republican who bolted with the party on these coastal issues. We're not going to have somebody in the state Senate who is going to be a spokesperson for this sort of the Monterey Bay type issues.
Yeah.
And that's tragic. That's
absolutely.
Most people in our community really haven't even paid attention to these two Senate races going on, particularly in Santa Cruz, because we're split here now.
Yeah, you're the smallest county in California. You've got 2 congressional districts. You've got 2 or maybe possibly 3 Senate districts in this little tiny county. So you know that even gerrymandering in California is trying to split up the liberal Santa Cruz County so that it won't be in one block to be able to vote for state and federal offices.
I'm curious, because you were our assemblyman here for many years. You spent a lot of time up in Sacramento, been active in statewide politics. I know you were back in D.C. when that happened. Were you consulted about that in any way? Were you surprised how that happened? I mean, the Democrats clearly played a role in that drawing up of that district. I'm just curious.
The Democrats in the state legislature, along with the Republicans, because they wanted a 2/3 vote, so the reapportionment issue couldn't be referendum on the ballot, which everybody who was dissatisfied with the way it was done would have filed petitions to make a referendum. And you can't referendum an emergency statute, which is what they did by voting it as a 2/3 vote. Yeah, and we were consulted in Washington, but not allowed to sort of draw the districts. A lot went into it, but frankly, I just said, I was chair of the Democratic delegation, and I just said, look, you can make my district more democratic, but don't. Because frankly, it's a smart district. It's sort of the watershed of Monterey Bay.
Yeah.
And I had to lose people in this district. So what I did is the district was San Lorenzo Valley, and the mountains were over in Santa Clara Valley. And that line just moved a little bit closer to the ocean.
Right.
But of all the 53 congressional districts in California, this changed the least.
Let me ask you, go to the lighter side here. You're predicted to win heavily for this, and you've got an evening of going around and visiting people. Where are you going tonight? This is sort of your first stop, but where else are you headed out?
No, this is not my first stop. This is my 3rd stop.
Oh, all right. That's how far I am behind. What are you?
No, I go around election night. I just like to go to the headquarters and thank people for their hard work and check in and thank the clerks, the election clerks and officials for having to put up with it. I just had an interesting conversation with Gail Pellegrin, wondering about how do you hear on the national polls, and then I'm hearing locally, they were running out of ballots. I said, well, how do you run out of ballots? I mean, I never heard of that before. And the reason is that they have to estimate, they take the total number of registered voters, and they order the ballots before registration ends. And in this case, because there were thousands of new names that came in after they'd ordered ballots, unfortunately, Gail Pellegrin asked for some more. I guess Tony Ashundo of Monterey didn't, and I've heard that they're running out of ballots. I said, well, what do you do when you totally run out? She said, well, some of these people are using provisional ballots, and we didn't, I didn't have enough of those. Those are provisionals when you come in, say, I'm registered to vote, and they have no record of it, but they sort of the benefit of the doubt, and the courts will allow this to happen. We'll go ahead and vote. But before we count your ballot, we're going to check to see that you are a registered voter. And if you are, we'll count it. And if you aren't, we won't. Those are what the provisional, any discrepancy puts a ballot in a provisional category. She said that, frankly, you could just go take the, if you know, push came to shove, you just start Xeroxing off the sample ballot. And they could use that and then transfer it onto the poll. So it seems that we're, I mean, I thought, Sherry, my wife, and I were watching television earlier tonight, and I said, you know, here California is the biggest state in the union. We vote more people than anybody. We got more problems probably than all these other states. We don't seem to get into the problems that you're hearing Ohio's having and Florida's having. And yet now I find out maybe we are, but not to the extent that those states are. I think we run a much better election process out here than most of the states in the country.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, you served under Clinton, and now for the past 4 years you've served under Bush in Congress. What's that been like, serving under the Bush administration during these last 4 years?
Well, it's been hard for California because he didn't win California and he ignored California, and he's not interested in California. And frankly, here's a president wants to cut, squeeze, and trim. He hasn't got a lot of ideas. He doesn't ask Congress to engage in problem solving. He comes to Congress and says, this is what I want, take it or leave it. And the Republican administration in Congress normally supports him. So it's really been one of people trying to wait and say, look, don't just destroy these programs. We can't just go to vouchers. You can't just go to prayer in the school. You can't just eliminate women's right to choose. You just can't do these things the way they'd like to. And so it's been mostly a defensive battle. And I think it's going to be even more difficult if this election goes strongly in Bush's favor, because I think he'll be back there with scorched earth policy that we've won, we own it, it's ours, and we got it for 4 years, and nobody can touch us, and we'll just drive home everything that we want to drive home. I think I think Americans really have gotten involved in this election, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's, a big political revolt going on in America. I don't think people are going to take the policies of the last 4 years and allow those to be pushed through in the next 4.
But he has, just looking at what's happened so far, his victories in the states that that have already gone to him have been, some of them sort of overwhelming victories. And so obviously there's a lot of people who think what he's doing is right. What are they going to do when the other side takes to the streets, so to speak?
Well, I think if you look at the popular vote, and I'd be surprised if that popular vote has a big discrepancy in it. And that popular vote means that Americans are evenly split, and therefore they're not going to just accept a totalitarian sort of a one-size-fits-all solution to these problems. I mean, California is a very progressive state. We're not going to, we won't suffer because we've got a Republican governor, and obviously he's interested in running for president and would like to see the constitutional amendment changed, the constitutional amendment adopted by the states so we'd have that opportunity. I was laughing last night, saying, well, if it all really gets too bad, I'm sure Schwarzenegger would suggest we just secede from the United States and become the country of California, and then he could be president. And
we'll have that rule here. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, who's driving you around tonight? Is our boy John doing it?
Yes, John's doing it. He loves doing it. His daughter Kate, is doing. John Collins, who's a school board member here,
And a SoCal High grad.
And SoCal High grad.
His daughter went to Harvard, but John and I were classmates together.
His daughter Kate is doing a Page, her junior year of high school in the United States Congress.
Oh, that's great.
So I just talked to her on the phone, John driving me up, and Kate was back with all the Pages, and they're all watching this, watching the election results come in. They've got to go to bed by 10 o'clock. They have a curfew because they're all, they're high school students who are serving from all over the United States, who are working on the floor of the House of Representatives.
And they have to go to bed at 10 on election night?
Well, I'm sure they're not going to get much sleep.
No,
Now, there's all these little links, though, between Washington, D.C. and your congressional district.
Well, we try to make it user-friendly. I mean, after all, when whomever's elected to this seat is then, once sworn in, represents all the people. not just the ones who elected for them, or not even just the ones who can vote. I mean, you're really out there making laws on every living thing, on the environment and on people, and I think you have to be a good listener. You really have to know the territory, too. That's what I've learned in politics. If people say, what's the most important thing? I said, to really understand how things function. Learn about local government. Learn about special districts. Learn about what city government, municipal government is, what county government is. Learn what the state does and its functions are. And the federal government. And once you really understand all these things, it's very easy. It's sort of like learning baseball, basketball, and football, and learning the rules of the game. Once you do it, you can talk the sports, and you can talk issues, and you can watch the game. And in this case, you don't watch politics, you participate in it. But it has a lot of similarities to just knowing the rules.
Well, you grew up in this district. Your dad, Fred, was a beloved representative from this district for many years. So I loved, he used to auction our sheep at the county fair when I was a kid. That was before John was born.
That's right.
Yeah. But, and you sort of grew up in that milieu, but you really have a sense of the terrain here. How much does that help you in Congress?
Did you write that letter that my father always had on our bulletin board? It was, Dear Senator, I liked the fact that you auctioned off my pig, so I bought a new one with the money and then named it after you.
No, I was only sheep. The pig guys were down the other way, okay? No, I think give me a blue ribbon once. Yeah. But I mean, that's really kind of the milieu you grew up in. And, you know, again, it's kind of a very rooted sensibility for the district.
Well, I think that I feel passionate about this. I feel that we are blessed. We live this district. I mean, what I call the watershed of Monterey Bay. And I've had a chance. I left this country, served in the Peace Corps, came back, and learned a lot about me and this country and our culture. And then I served in local government, learned a lot about that. And I went to Sacramento and realized, my God, our little local governments around here are pretty nifty. And then in Washington, learned, compared to the rest of the, I mean, that was compared to the rest of the state. Compared to the rest of the nation, we're unique. You know, Santa Cruz Transit District is one of the best in the entire United States in ridership. Incredible. To have a University of California campus in the smallest county in population in California, and next door a CSU campus, we're probably the best served population in California to have two forms of higher education. The only federal military school that giving a doctorate and master's degree, the Naval Postgraduate School, the only kind in the whole federal government of anything. The largest language school in the world. All these marine institutions around the bay. This incredible environment, this incredible ocean. These mountains around here that grow the tallest, red, and oldest trees. And the valleys of Pajaro and Salinas that grow the more agriculture than any other state in the United States. I mean, this place is just so bountiful in its environmental diversity, and then and the people that have been attracted to it historically. I mean, we're so enriched, and we're problem solvers. You know, we're kind of laureates and Levites here in Santa Cruz. We think big, and we act locally, and we implement. And even this station is a remarkable community access station. So I'm just, you know, I feel like awestruck that I get to represent what I think is the best place in the world in the United States Congress. And my fight back there is, well, you know, all these things where you want to solve problems, give us a chance. Give us an opportunity to try and solve them out here.
Great. We got about a minute left. John, how about one more question?
Well, I rather than a question, I would sort of like to just thank you for your ongoing service for this community. You've done so many things as far as the ocean and the land here, and it's just a wonderful thing to have you working for us, and congratulations on winning again. I know it's not official, but we know you're going to be our representative again, and personally, I'm very, very pleased to have you back.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
And thanks for coming and joining us here tonight, too.
And I love doing this. I love the campaign. Even my opponents, every time they would thank me, because they know in a lot of these kinds of campaigns, the incumbent doesn't have to show up. And I loved it. I enjoyed discussing issues with people. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight.
John and I were down in Capitola yesterday on the bluffs at El Salto overlooking the bay, and we could see the peaks of the Santa Lucias. to the south. Juniper Affair, you could actually see us.
Isn't it clear?
Oh, it was a gorgeous day. I mean, anyway, so I went back there again today and did some interviews on the Capitola Wharf with people on the street with Peter McGettigan, and we'll be going to that right now. Let's have a look. Hi, I'm Jeff Dunn with Community Television, and we're here on Election Day at the Capitola Pier, interviewing citizens of Capitola about their impressions of today's election.
You know, one thing I like though about this guy, what's his name? W, like old W, it sounds like old yellow, right? What's the difference between the Iraq War and the Vietnam War? Come on, you got an answer to that? Bush had a plan on how to get out of the Vietnam War.
Because the world's in bad shape now with the present administration, and we either got to get something done over in Iraq or get out of there, and the economy is in bad shape. The poor people are really suffering, and we need to do something about it.
I believe that the election is important just because many people are voting for the war or are wanting to go for more war in this world, and I believe, since I am just barely going to be turning 18, that war is not very necessary in here. And for presidency-wise, some people are wanting to have more war or draft, and girls being drafted at age 18 is not a thing that I would love to do. So I believe that picking or doing the election or voting is very important, and that you should really think wisely about it.
So voting is important, and I think that if you don't vote, you really miss out.
I think this is important election, as many of the elections are, but I think this one is critically important because of what's going on with our foreign policy. I think with our occupation of Iraq, primarily, that I think that John Kerry offers a better way to get us out, whereas, I'm within the age that if Bush was to start a draft, that I would be a possible candidate for that, and I have friends that have died over that, and I think we should get out.
The right person to get in that will take care of us and take care of my grandchildren for the future. Very important. Decisions that are made today are my grandchildren and mine and my children's future. Keep us safe, Sam.
Este día, la elección nacional es muy importante porque vamos a definir quién es el presidente por los próximos 4 años. Es muy importante que nosotros ahora pongamos una persona que nos va a representar. La persona que está adentro ahora, el presidente Bush, no nos ha representado por los 4 años. Al contrario, nos mandó a guerra, nos mintió y nos ha puesto en una situación económica muy mal. Por eso es que tenemos que elegir ahora un presidente que de veras tiene el interés del pueblo y que nos va a llevar a un mejor futuro y sacarnos de esa guerra que estamos ahora.
I think that the jump on Iraq was one of the stupidest things without an exit move. I mean, it's Vietnam. I was involved in Vietnam, and it's, nobody had a way out. I mean, why go in and disturb other people, their way of life? I know that Saddam Hussein wasn't the answer for Iraq, but we needed a little bit better plan. I don't think Bush planned.
And we all want to get along, have peace within the world. I don't know whether it'll happen in my lifetime, but certainly every little step helps.
I'm Jeff Dunn. I'm here with John Sandidge, my co-host, and we have a very special guest in our studio tonight, Bruce McPherson, State Senator. Bruce, thanks for being here.
Nice to be here on election night that I'm not involved, really. It was 11 years ago tonight that I won my first election, as a matter of fact. So
Talked about
gone
it.
fast.
I actually talked about that a little earlier. In my mind, it was one of the biggest upsets. You and I had talked about your long shot chances very early. We met in my aunt's restaurant, and you pulled it off.
Yeah, right. We had a solid core of supporters, and Actually, I think it came down that people just trusted my family and trusted me and what I was saying and what I would do, and stood fast. And I think I hope people think I've represented the district in the Assembly and the Senate very well these last 11 years. I feel good about it, and it's been a great legislative ride.
You also won the state primary, Republican primary for lieutenant governor.
Right.
Also
And
big
I'd
win.
like to be running that race this year. but that's the way it goes. Timing's a lot of things. Big state. Have no regrets, and I'm glad we did it. It's a different scene to run statewide, no question. But I'm glad I did it. It was the right thing to do, and I feel good about the race we ran.
You were telling me that you got to spend some time with your grandson today.
Right.
You looking forward to doing that a little more?
Oh yeah. Well, since we decided not to run this year, and it was the right decision, no question. I've seen our grandson Cooper and our granddaughter Sydney more in the last 6 months than I probably would have seen them in the next 2 or 4 years. So it's worth it. It's something that was definitely the right decision for us to make this time.
Great.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat now. I have two grandchildren. There's Jake and McKenna, and it does gives you a whole new twist to life when they come in. I never really thought about that. Even thought about being a grandfather. That was a hard concept right there.
Yeah, no, I think
and you sort of roll into it, and it really makes it all worthwhile. Is that part of the reason you don't, as you were saying, you don't want? Are you?
No, I mean, there could be something in the future, but this was not the time. There's a couple other situations we have in the family that we just have to get settled, and I wanted to sit down and settle down and see the grandkids more, and our daughter's just terrific. She's just she and her husband Dave are the best parents in the world.
Second there.
Right, yeah.
Well, we can talk about grandkids for a long time. Of course, I still have my own kids who are very young.
Don't worry, you'll catch up.
All right. Well, I spend as much time with him as I can. My question to you is, I was having lunch last week with your aide, Michael Warren.
Great guy. Knows the political scene in Santa Cruz County better than anybody I know.
And one of the things that people who are involved with politics learn about people who run is you got to have a fire in your belly to do it.
Right.
And if you don't win. I mean, I've been seeing both these candidates for president go across the country, and boy, they got the fire. You have to have it to do it. You got the fire, and you're taking a little rest. But there are the possibilities of some other offices, aren't there?
Yeah, it could be. And honestly, there's been a lot of things said in a couple areas: education, energy, tax issues, those types of boards are something that could happen. But my term doesn't officially end until December 1st, and so it would be improper for me to just, I just don't want to have any indication of impropriety that I did something because I wanted that. And so we'll find out probably after the first year. But I feel like I'm on the same page with the governor, Arnold.
Arnold.
And, yes, honored. And so there could be some possibilities there. And it's an exciting time. And California, frankly, we're not out of the woods financially. I think the year 2006 is going to see that we're in some deep financial straits here in California.
We carried the Panetta lecture a couple weeks ago with Arnold on it.
He's great.
Well, it was very interesting.
Straightforward.
No, it was very interesting to me because sort of the Republican position that he was taking seemed very similar to yours, moving toward the middle. He said the middle is where it's at, the fringes are where it's not at. One of our problems in California is because of the way that the Assembly and Senate districts are drawn up, you get people on the extreme side of the party being elected.
I'll tell you, in my 11 years, the biggest compliment and support system that I get is people say, you are independent in your thoughts. You're not just straight party line one way or the other. And so they appreciate that. And of course, a Republican in this district couldn't be a far-right Republican and win, I don't think. But that's who I was, and people knew it. And I think it got down to some issues on women's issues, choice, and guns, and environmental protection, and really not giving up on our educational system that we still need to pay a lot of attention to. It needs a lot of attention. We give half of our state budget to it. That's the top priority by far. It should be. And I just love that area of education. That's where it's at. That's what's going to make this state better and what has made it so good in the past.
Let me ask the question. You in the middle, and you have been, and you've been taken that position very strong. But why are you a Republican, not a Democrat? How did that happen?
Well, and people said when I was first running, why don't you change to be a Democrat or an independent? And I just said, no, that's hypocritical. It would be, I've been a Republican all my life, and these are the values or the decisions that I've made on issues. As an editor of the Sentinel for 10 years, writing editorials, I think they're right on target with and they fit with this district. And I don't want to make the sound wrong or self-serving, but I want more Republicans to be like me. And frankly,
so do I.
And I want more Democrats to be more on the moderate side too. And right now in the state of California, this legislature is the most partisan legislature that I've experienced in 11 years. And that's disheartening to me. Now, there's not going to be a lot of change, and I know you were talking about reapportionment, but we need to change that process for sure. I've got some very quick numbers if you want to go into more detail of why we need to do it. But there's people on the right and the left, and there's not much in the middle, and if it's any wonder we really don't come to an agreement on some big issues or concentrate on those big issues, health care, education, our energy and our infrastructure, which are falling apart. And we're going to have another energy shortage in 2006 unless we really start cracking right now.
Well, let's talk about reapportionment with your district. What do you see happening in your district right now? Yeah. Nastiest race I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and
brutal.
And frankly, everybody knows Abel Maldonado is the Republican candidate, and he is my best friend in the Assembly. He is a moderate Republican, is identified.
He likes to fly, I hear.
Yes, yeah, I know. But you know, he could walk to Sacramento and not get paid any more than he has when he's flown his plane. I mean, but that's campaigns. And,
yeah,
you know,
I know, but it was so
sides.
funny.
But yeah, I think we do have some representation on the coast. Abel is, I mean, I'm assuming he's going to win. I think he's going to win by 6 or 8 points. But
okay.
I think that, you know, he is going to have a real, he's going to have a real dedication to preserving Monterey Bay and the whole coastline down in San Luis Obispo County, which is that entire 15th district that I didn't have any of. But in reapportionment, if I could just get to that. I mean,
yes.
Here we have 80 assembly seats, 40 state senate, and 53 congressional, 173 seats. And the difference in registration, I think, between Democrats and Republicans is less than 9%. Let's say 10%. And usually people think, well, you need to be within 10% to have a legitimate contested race. Mm-hmm. Well, of those 173 seats in the 2002 election, only 24 of them, or less than 14%, were within 10 points of each other.
Sure.
So you run farther to the left or farther to the right to win your primary, and there's no room in the middle, or that just doesn't happen. And I think that's not representative of the state of California, and I think our political system is suffering for it.
Was the Maldonado-Pinard race closer than you thought it was going to be?
No, I didn't know how much as it turned out. There were 3 or 4 races, only probably one contested. This is somewhat contested, but the one in Stockton is a really highly contested one, the 5th district.
So there's only a couple of them that are contested, so all the money's being poured into.
Yeah, and that's exactly. They thought there were 2 others that might be in San Diego and Ventura. Those did not become. They're going to stay Democrat seats, and so John Burton, who is still shuffling the money, he has poured $3 million into Peg Pinard's campaign, or did. You know,
poured
it's over now.
$1,000 into a couple of your races.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They tried to get me out a few times, pretty good, took pretty good shots at me, but you know, we withstood it. And I've had my opponents say, we just couldn't believe the base and the determination that your supporters had, come rain or shine, whenever it was. I can't tell you how much. I don't know how to thank those people. How many people helped me, because it kind of blows your mind about just to be appreciative that I'm only the 27th person to hold this state senate seat. Mm-hmm. And to represent 850,000 people in the most beautiful district in the state is a very humbling and honorable experience. And I've, you know, I've tried to get back to people as much as I can over these last 11 years, and I think we've been able to do that, and as best you can. And it's been very worthwhile, and I just want to thank those who had the confidence in me 4 times running, twice in the Assembly and twice in the Senate, to allow me to have this opportunity to represent them.
Well, you thanked them with your service. You thanked all of us with your service. You going to miss it?
Oh yeah, you miss the action. It's educational, it's energizing, and you know, being on the only vote on some law, you know, the offshore oil, or some education bonds, or you know, some maybe anti-gun laws or something like this, I feel very comfortable with that. I mean, that's who I was when I was editor of the Sentinel, and how I wrote it. That's how I voted it when I was in the Senate, and that's who I'm going to be tomorrow. So very comfortable. Had some people that didn't like it too well in the party, but hey, that's the way it is. That's who I am.
You know, we have to move on here. Joel is waiting over there.
I know. We'll get to him. I was just going to say, if you're missing the action, Pete Pappas and I will take you on a tour of the Indian casinos, and we'll find you.
All right. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you, Don. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, we're going to head right over to Joel with some early election results. Joel, take it away, bud.
All right, Geoffrey, thank you very much. And folks, obviously this is a year where a lot of people are voting via the absentee ballot, so as a result, we've got a ton of results for you early here. Let's get right to it. First race, we're going to focus on State Senator, 15th District. You see there, Peg Pinard, the Democrat, 38%, Abel Maldonado at 58%. So Maldonado with the early lead there. Of course, no precincts yet reporting, but a lot of absentee ballots, as I said. Next race, Measure J. Of course, this is the controversial one. Do you want to widen Highway 1? A lot of people feel like it should be widened, but you see here early the no vote is winning. And of course, remember, folks, 2/3 of the yes vote must prevail to make that measure happen. Shifting our focus now to County Supervisor, the 5th District race. Again, 0 of 71 precincts reporting, but we've got these early numbers for you. Mark Stone with 56.5% of the vote. Stephanie Aguilar with 43%. And again, it's early on, but as you see, about 6,000 votes already counted up there. Moving on now to the city of Santa Cruz, the council race, 4 positions available. And you see here Emily Reilly, Ryan Coonerty, Mark Primack, and Ed Porter with the early advantage. But you see Porter's got a lot of competition. Scott Kennedy right behind him, and Tony Madrigal also very much in this race early. Moving now up north to Scotts Valley, the city council up there. 3 seats available, 4 candidates. You see Randy Johnson, Dean Bustici, and Cliff Barrett, the early lead. Debbie Moose at this point on the outside looking in, but again, it's early there. City of Capitola now, the city council race there. 2 seats available. Michael Termini, Kirby Nickel. The leaders to this point, Daniel Pacino, Colleen Armstrong, Richard Halterman, and Jacques Bertrand bringing up the rear in that race. Now let's move on. City of Watsonville, we're heading south. District 1 here, and again, this is Manuel Bersamin against Gabriel Gonzalez. You see here early, percentage-wise, Bersamin with that lead, but because there's so few votes counted, only a 38-point advantage for Bersamin here early. San Lorenzo Valley School Board now. We'll take a look at that race. Lee Dakota. Actually, we've got one more Watsonville race to cover for you. I beg your pardon. Oscar Rios, Richard De La Paz. That heated contest. An early lead for Rios. 0 of 2 precincts reporting. You see about 150 absentee ballots cast to this point. Now we'll head up north to San Lorenzo Valley. Again, I beg your pardon, another city of Watsonville district. We're figuring it out here, folks. Judy Daring Nielsen with that obvious victory. We figured she would win, and clearly she will there with 386 out of 398 votes. She is not contested there. Now I think we'll head to San Lorenzo Valley, the school board up there. There you go, Area 5. Lee Dakota, the early lead, but Carl Bergman right in it as well. So that will be a tight contest to keep our eye on throughout the night. Now we'll head over to Scotts Valley in that board race. 3 seats available in this one, folks. Sue Ross, Chuck Walker, and Joseph Espinola Jr., the early lead. Michael Smith and Carol Harris on the outside looking in, but again, that's early here in Scotts Valley. Now we'll head to Santa Cruz City Schools. Lastly, Area 1. This is inside the city. Ken Wagman, the early leader, up on John Wasserberger. Wagman, as you see, 61% to Wasserberger's 39%. Well, that's going to do it for this update, folks. We're going to head back to Geoffrey Dunn. We'll see you in about 15 minutes with our next update. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Joel. I'm here with my co-host, John Sandidge, and we have two new guests here from the Santa Cruz City Council race, Ryan Coonerty and Scott Kennedy. Thank you both.
Great to be here.
Great to be here. Thanks.
It's my last time on the Air Community TV. I mean, in this formal capacity, so it's great to have you both here with us.
Well, it's my last time as candidate.
There you go. All right, we'll go out together.
We'll go out together.
My first meeting as ED was with you, too.
That's right.
Perfect balance.
There we go.
All right, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Start with Ryan. You know, I think there's a perception about this race this time, from the outside looking in. It's been sort of this very mild race. You guys all agree on everything. I think one of the local papers said, oh yeah, it's been a sort of tweedledee, tweedledum election, whatever. Doesn't feel like that from the inside when I talk to you candidates. How's it been for you, your first race?
It's been fun. It's obviously nerve-wracking, but I think there are differences, but the difference is that in Santa Cruz this time, there's been a civil conversation about it. And we all understand we're facing real budget cuts. We all understand we're facing serious pressures from growth from the university and other development projects. But I think that it's really a credit to how people were able to talk and work with each other.
Scott, how about you?
I agree.
Yeah?
I think you've got 6 or 7 good candidates. The discourse is civil, constructive, and I think it's been a pleasure.
Okay, this is, what, your 4th time running?
My fourth attempt, yeah.
And you also served with his dad.
That was one of the highlights of my public service.
I'm sure it was.
If he's a faint echo of his dad, the humor...
I'm working on the beard.
The humor and constructive work will go up considerably, as long as he agrees not to introduce a looks law, like his dad did. That maybe was not the highlight, but...
What's it feel like? Really, honestly, you've served a long time in this community, and you've been a member of this community for 3 decades. What's it feel like now to have another generation come aboard?
I think it's great. I think Tony and Ryan would add a lot to the council. It'll be interesting to see what they do. And, you know, it's one thing to talk about new leadership, but it's been kind of vacuous about what the exact changes would be. But I don't have any doubt that younger people bring a different perspective. And as we know, young people in this community are an endangered species because of the housing crisis, the lack of jobs. I think it'd be great if both of them got in.
And we should also get ready because Scott has a daughter, Megan Kennedy, who's just amazing. I've known her growing up, and she's out traveling the world right now. But I got a hunch.
Look at her chops.
I got a hunch she's coming back. I got a hunch.
Yeah.
Richmond, Indiana, right?
No, she's actually in Madrid, Spain.
No, but I meant she went to school.
Yeah, she graduated from Earlham College in Indiana. So.
Yes, very good. John?
Yeah, Ryan has sort of been watching you grow up since I've lived in this community. I didn't get here. I'm a newcomer. I didn't get here till '77. But watching you, you've become sort of the favorite of this community because we've watched you grow up through your father, of course, but through your Santa Cruz High School and all of the work you've done since then. You've become sort of an instant celebrity in this town over a long period of time. You're one of the most familiar names in town. How does that strike you?
It's been fun. You know, I'm not sure celebrity because I walked through a lot of doors during this campaign, and a lot of people didn't have the foggiest notion who I was when I was knocking on their door. But it is, in the end, Santa Cruz is just a small town, like any other small town. And so it's neat to be able to walk around and know people's parents and know people I grew up with who are still in town. And it's just sort of one of the things that makes Santa Cruz special.
Let me follow up on that. Now, since you have been doing all this and been part of it so long, where do you think our biggest problem is? What do you want to solve? If we said to you, okay, Ryan, you get to solve this problem, what's your first one you want to work on?
Well, in some ways, I think we got to create a long-term vision. And the problem is that Santa Cruz has we faced an earthquake, and then we faced explosive growth from over the hill and the pressures that brought on. And then we experienced an economic downturn and state takeaways of money. And so in all this, we've ended up having to respond to a lot of crises. And I think we're at an opportunity now where we still have to deal with the short-term crisis, but we can also do some long-term planning to say what this community is going to look like 10, 15, 20, 40 years from now.
And what would you like to see then?
You know, I'd like to see a Santa Cruz that is still similar to the Santa Cruz I grew up in. In other words, it has a protected environment, it has a vital downtown, and it has the same commitment to social justice, to diversity. I think those are core values, and we have to make sure that we implement policies to support them.
Hey, go ahead, Jeff. We'll trade back and forth.
Yeah, well, you know, Scott, I was thinking about this election, 98. You know, it's kind of hard to talk political spectrum in Santa Cruz. I mean, you know, the old idea that we're all Keynesian now, and it's almost like we're all progressives now here in Santa Cruz. But in 98, there was sort of a swing to the far left, I would say, of the progressive spectrum in the election. And it seems to me now with this election, we're moving back towards a moderate place. Is it feeling that, Cap, for you? As a candidate, do you see it in those terms? Or is it all about practical issues dealing with the city? I mean, you guys are having to deal with some very serious issues, budgetary issues, structural issues. How does that feel to you?
You know, I think when Ryan talks about a vision, and this is interesting because we never get to this level of the discussion in any of the forums today.
Yeah.
But when our vision is what Santa Cruz was like when we grew up, this is the problem. We need to really discuss in a non-electoral context what it means to be progressive,
Yeah.
what it means to have a forward-looking view about Santa Cruz. Because recreating the community that Ryan grew up in or my children grew up in, simply not going to happen. And we need to understand how we're going to navigate a future that's different. Nostalgia is not the same as progressivism.
Yeah.
And the problem that we've encountered is that what passes for progressivism, I'm not talking about Ryan, but in other situations is some kind of nostalgia that essentially has no answer to the future, no yes to any realistic possibilities, but a giant no to anything that happens in the community. And that reflects too much of what tries to represent itself as progressive in the community. So it's a discussion that needs to happen. You know, after earthquake in 1989, there was a series of community forums and a really broad-based discussion that said, let's really look at what we want to be in the future. We need to have a similar discussion like that. We attempted that in 1998 with the beach area. We did not successfully pull that off. It's a lot easier to have that kind of fundamental discussion or discussion of essentials in the wake of a natural disaster that forces you together than to try to do that through political will. There aren't external forces right now that are forcing that discussion, so it's going to be a challenge for Ryan and others to actually bring us to that point in the discussion. But I don't accept this equation of nostalgia and progressivism because it gives us no place to go.
Well, you said something earlier that just hit me right in the gut, and it was that young people are an endangered species in our community. You've had your kids grow up here, Ryan, you've grown up here, I grew up here, and we're just seeing so many more kids of the younger generation not being able to afford to live here. It's pretty stunning. I mean, is there any way that we can combat that, or are there, you know, I mean, in your forums, did you address that issue? I mean, really, that's the...
You know, really, we should also have a discussion about how to conduct elections in Santa Cruz. Because these forums, not this one, but the forums, the dozen forums we go through, are essentially a waste of people's time because they're so time constricted. You have very little opportunity to get into the issues. But our problem, for example, among the best paid jobs in the city are the university jobs. Yet there's a tremendous backlash against the university. The idea of growth of the university is rejected out of hand by a lot of people. You have people say, oh, you know, the university is best when there's only 10,000 students. When I went there, I think there were 5,000 students. I thought it was great. We loved it. But what kind of industry, what kind of future will we have? We have the potential of a hotel conference center. That's going to be built with union jobs, and it's going to be operated as a union operation. Those are jobs that people could actually stay in this community. But people want to not just, they don't, of course, want to keep the dream in. They kind of like the way the bluff looked before the dream in. It's like, get a clue. Something's going to happen. Let's make some choices that bring decent paying jobs into this community.
So that's one of the most ironic issues to me is about the look of the current dream in. I mean, it's hard to get much worse than that, so anything on that would be an improvement. I do remember the bluff before.
Are you going to be able to see the bluff after the new one is built?
Yeah.
Because they're pulling back from the beach, but only a small part of it.
They're pulling back, let me listen, they're pulling back from the beach. Where do they go?
No, they're just pulling back from the, they're building on the same footprint.
Yeah.
But what remains of that actual first, like plateau or bluff, actually will be exposed for the first time. You can see it now from the ocean side, but it's not exposed.
Yeah. Ryan, first campaign.
Yep.
You happy you did it?
I'm very happy. I mean, sort of regardless of the outcome, it was a lot of fun. I got to walk a lot of neighborhoods, streets that I didn't even know existed, talk to a lot of folks, and I think overall the thing that was reinforced for me was just how good the people of this community are. They're thoughtful, and they're considerate, and they want to engage, and they care about the community. And I felt that almost every day of this campaign.
Well, if you're elected, and it looks like from the early results you're probably going to be, what's one of your primary goals on the council?
You know, there are a lot of specific projects. I think the Hotel Conference Center is something we need to take a serious look at, and I'm excited by the opportunity, but we still need to go look at the numbers and look at the impacts. But primarily, I think what I promised people was that I would bring a younger perspective to the city council, and I think that it's helpful to have a council that has a lot of different perspectives on it, from small-town business people to professional folks to nonprofit folks, and I think that I want to bring that new perspective.
The big question is, if we both get elected, will you go out with me after meetings? That's what your dad used to do. That's the biggest life right now in the current council.
Yeah, but the question is, where will you go? You got to go to the Red Room or Cloud, Scott. You can't go.
We can't go to Santa Cruz Diner. That works.
We got to wrap it up here, Jeff. It's time to go back to get some more news from Jason.
No, from Joel.
Joel. Jason's gone.
You know, yesterday was John's birthday. I won't tell you how old he was, but it was John's birthday, and, you know, there's a little slip there. So,
yeah, you forget that.
I was glad that we like to have seniors here every once in a while.
That's good.
Okay, yeah.
Could you get the people over to help me out?
All right, sure. Let's shoot it over to Joel right now. Thank you.
All right, Geoffrey, you guys are having too much fun over there. I like it. All right, folks, let's get right to these results. Here are the latest off our computer. First, again, that state senate race, District 15, Peg Kennard trails Abel Maldonado there. And again, it's early, but Maldonado with that lead. Moving now to Measure J, that controversial measure here in Santa Cruz to widen Highway 1. Remember, 2/3 of the vote needs to pass here, and right now it's not looking good for widening. As you see there, the noes with the early lead in that one. 5th District Supervisor now. We'll take a look at that result. And again, this is the race between Mark Stone and Stephanie Aguilar. And you see here Stone with that early lead over Aguilar in that county supervisor 5th district race. Moving on now to the Santa Cruz City Council. You just saw Ryan Coonerty and Scott Kennedy on our stage. Let's see how they're doing. Coonerty still in the 2nd spot. Kennedy on the outside looking in, but in a virtual dead heat with Ed Porter, Mark Primack, and Emily Reilly also with leads here early. Tony Madrigal looks like he could be a threat for quite a while tonight. Moving to the city of Scotts Valley now in the council race in that one. 3 seats available. Randy Johnson, Dean Bustici, and Cliff Barrett with the early lead. Debbie Muth in 4th place, but again, 0 of 8 precincts reporting in that one. City of Capitola council race now. Let's go to that. See what the numbers tell us. 2 seats available here. Michael Termini, Kirby Nickel, the early lead. Daniel Pacino and Colleen Armstrong also in the thick of things. Richard Halterman there you see in 5th place. City of Watsonville now. We'll try and get all the districts right this time. 1st District 1. Let's take a look at that. Manuel Bersamine with the early lead over Gabriel Gonzalez. 63 to 36% in that one. Moving now to District 2 in Watsonville. Let's take a look at the early results. Oscar Rios with the lead on Richard De La Paz Jr. 63 to 35, about 64 to 35% there for Rios. And finally, it's District 6 in Watsonville. 0 of 5 precincts reporting. And again, Judy Daring Nielsen with no competition in that one. Moving on now, we'll head up to Bonnie Doon in that school board race. Our first look at the Bonnie Doon contest, and we'll get it up here. We don't have it. We've got it right here, so I'll just read them to you. Lisa Palm with the early lead. Michelle Whitesell with 26% is about 6% behind Lisa at this point. Michael Zucker in 3rd and Frank Wiley in 4th. 2 seats available there in Bonnie Doon. And again, it's Lisa Palm and Michelle Whitesell with the early lead there. Now we move on. Live Oak Elementary School Board, 2 seats available. Susan King McLean with the early lead. She's got 38% of the vote. Barney Brickmont in 2nd with 22%. James Bresnahan right on his heels, just 3 votes behind at this point. And Charlie Roos in 4th place. And again, 2 seats available there in Live Oak. So we'll keep an eye on that one for you. Looks like it's going to be close. And finally, Loma Prieta Union Elementary School Board, 2 seats available there. Patricia Rasmussen with the early lead, Lydia Dobbins in second. They are on the inside looking down at Pat McEntee and Randy Wheaton, who trail by not much. And again, it's early, just 0 of 5 precincts reporting. That's all absentee to this point. So we'll get back to that race for you later on as well. That's going to do it for this update. We'll see you in 15 minutes. We've got more guests in the studio and a couple of new hosts for you. Rachel Ann Goodman and Bruce Bratton will take you through. Let's send it over to them.
They just sent it over to us, and here we are, live, election 2004 here in Santa Cruz County, the Santa Cruz County Community Television. And on my right and your whatever right here is Rachel Goodman, Rachel Ann Goodman of KUSP, and who's an independent producer, right?
Yes.
Independent, very independent. Yes. You want to introduce our guests?
Yes, we have 2 people running for Santa Cruz City Council, Emily Reilly and Mark Primack.
Hi.
On there and hoping to continue. Welcome.
Hi. And they're both smiling. You notice they're both smiling.
It's
right?
early enough in the night.
Yes,
We don't have too many results yet, just the absentees. Although, like many other places, many more people voted absentee this time than did in the past. I think 30,000 people in Santa Cruz County, which is pretty astounding when you think about it.
Yeah.
So we've seen some of those results. Some of those results are already up. Just as, have you guys seen those? Over there?
Some of them I've seen. I haven't seen them all.
They're looking nice for the both of you, actually. Yeah, good show, good show. Mark, let me ask you, what are your surprises in this campaign? What did you not think would be an issue that became an issue, or vice versa, or?
I think one of the advantages of being an incumbent is you're aware of all the issues. So it's just, it's almost a random, which citizen gets up at a forum and has the issue that's closest to their house or their neighborhood, and that's what you talk about. But I think people are pretty much across the city concerned about the same things as they've been for a number of years. They're concerned about university growth in the way it affects their neighborhoods.
Wait, is that what you consider first? You mentioned that first. Do you think that is? Did you get a reaction like that? Was a big question?
It was a big question in most of the forums because it ties into issues of traffic and it ties into issues of housing and it ties into the economy as well. So, it was first and foremost on people's minds when they were talking about those issues.
But the long-range plan just came out, so it didn't really play a huge role in this election. If it had come out maybe a month ago, it would have been a lot more fodder, I think, for you to discuss.
Well, the 21,000 number came out months ago, though.
But the specifics of the northern access road weren't in there, I don't think.
Right.
So that's new.
Yeah.
So those are West Side Santa Cruz issues that are near and dear to you, I'm sure.
Always have been, yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Emily, because you've dealt with the university now as mayor, as city council person, and so on. Well, both of you have. But what's your feeling of how receptive they are to any feedback that we would give them as citizens? I mean, our new chancellor up there says a lot. He seems out there and open and give me your ideas and stuff. Do you think it's true? I mean, you think both of you?
I think he's interested in hearing what we have to say. But, bottom line, they get the word grow from the regents, and that's what they're working on. I'm on the LRDP committee, and I have seen a real excitement over the months as the consultants realize they are going to be able to present a plan that shows that the university campus can sustain 21,000. And the sort of scary thing about it is that when you look at the slides and they have the big PowerPoint presentations about, the line stops right at campus. And so there was a campus community group that had a lot to say about what the potential problems of that might be. And I will say this is the first time the university ever did that. The LRDP committee meetings are closed. They're not open to the public. And they allowed us to put together a campus community group that Marty Wormhout and I were both on, and Ron Fiduco and I co-chaired. And it had people from the community as well as people from campus. And we decided that we were going to work to consensus to put a paper together really describing what the concerns of the community were, especially based on what happened with the 88 LRDP. So, yeah.
What have been the most contentious parts of this race for each of you? And I'll start with you. That seemed like you have the most differences between the other people running, where you felt that there was a lot of friction that came out. Was it all hunky-dory and you all agree?
Well, you know, I certainly didn't get a lot of sense of contention. I think if there was anything we were mostly frustrated about, it was the fact that you can't really talk in much depth about anything at any of the forums.
So what was the one issue that you didn't get to speak about in the forums that you could now speak about in some very short depth?
Well, you know, I think certainly the transportation things for the city of Santa Cruz and the county of Santa Cruz are huge. And it's easy to have all these little sound bites about traffic calming and, you know, this and that. Just like with housing, you can do all the smart growth things and kind of tick them off. But it's complicated and it's all connected. And that, I think, I know I sensed, walking neighborhoods especially, that people aren't so much concerned about any one thing as they are about the fact that there's several things coming over the horizon all at once. UCSC growing, what's going on at the Dream Inn, what's going on with the West Side industrial lands, what's happening with more and more of a degradation of quality of life in the neighborhoods because of the speeding cars. So, you know, it's kind of this feeling of it's just too much
change too fast. How about you, Mark? What were the most, I don't know, places where you parted company the most often with your...
Well, you know, I think that people are really, as Emily said, beginning to realize the connection of issues. And I think that, let me just speak to the university growth, because we like to think that the university turns a deaf ear to Santa Cruz. But if we ask ourselves why the university is not pursuing an eastern access road to take traffic off of the west side of Santa Cruz, that's because of pressure from the city of Santa Cruz. If we ask ourselves why the university is pushing into this uncharted territory, the North Campus, it's because people in Santa Cruz have come out very emotionally against any development in the Great Meadow, which is closest to Santa Cruz and closest to services. So I do believe that we don't recognize or choose not to recognize the impact that we have on the university. It is a conversation that goes back and forth. If we realize the degree to which we are affecting it, I think that we can be more effective in terms of influencing those decisions.
I think it's important to remember that the people at the university, the staff and faculty, are members of the community. And at the LRDP committee meetings, there's plenty of disagreement about growth. The Strategic Futures Committee, there were people on that committee who didn't want to go to 21,000. There were people on the committee that we hear from every week or month or however often we meet about not wanting to encroach upon the Great Meadow. There are students who have great concerns about the Porter Meadow and the Great Meadow as well. So it's a complicated and contentious issue all around.
Yeah.
There's one, I wanted to bring up one issue that I thought, Mark, you must have felt lonely on. That's the widening of Highway 1. You were the only city council candidate that was in favor of widening it.
Well, you know, my position on Highway 1 is similar to my position on elections in general. I look in Santa Cruz and I see groups of people, small groups of people, that are very anxious to control elections, to control the results of elections. And it's not the politics that I wanted to get involved in. I wanted to get involved in consensus politics. I wanted citizens to come forward, take their citizenship seriously, inform themselves on the issues and vote. And what I saw in the Measure J was a measure that was poorly crafted, that in a lot of ways really reflects the contentiousness of the RTC, of the Transportation Commission, and in some ways was doomed to failure to begin with, because there were so many elements that were not well thought out. You know, tourist trains going nowhere, basically, that people found it really hard to get their mind around. And what I saw Measure J as was a referendum that allowed the people in Santa Cruz, if they wanted to take it this way, to simply come forward and say, we want our politicians to stop bickering. We want our politicians to get serious about dealing with transportation once and for all. This is something that should have happened 20 years ago. If it had happened 20 years ago, as Portland you know, dealt with its transportation issues, its planning issues, we would not be in the mess we're in now.
We only have 1 more minute, unfortunately, as many of these things get cut short just because of time. Finally, in 30 seconds, what are you going to look forward to when you find out the final results tonight? Going to have a good party? Or?
Well, we're probably all looking forward to a nap, I would say, and seeing a movie again.
Go back to real life.
Yeah, yeah.
How about your mother?
Real life, it's good.
Whatever that is.
I'm trying to remember what that is like. I don't want to be too idealistic about it, the real life. It's been so long.
Real.
But I think that, you know, we're either going to get back to our jobs in the city council and juggling those with our businesses, or we're going to think about all those wonderful things we neglected for 4 years as city council members and the other parts of our lives that we're going to be able to enjoy now.
Well, thank you both very much for being here.
You're welcome. Appreciate it. Now we turn it back over to Joel Domhoff in Election Central, or whatever area it's in. To the left, to the right, way over there, Joel.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that, and we appreciate Mark and Emily for joining us in that segment. All right, folks, we've got a key group of races that we're focusing on in each update, and then we've got a few others that we'll feature. But again, this one of the keys that we focused on here early, again, Peg Pinard and Abel Maldonado, that battle for the state Senate seat in District 15. And again, you see Maldonado with the lead over Pinard, the Democrat, in that race. Moving on now, again, we go back to Measure J. The widening of Highway 1 needs 2/3 of a majority to pass, and you see there the yes is still trailing the no's, and of course the yes would need 67% to make their dreams realized, so it doesn't look good early for Measure J. County Supervisor race now, we go to the 5th District, and again this battle between Mark Stone and Stephanie Aguilar, and you see there Stone with the lead, 56 to 43%, and again 0 of 71 precincts reporting, so it is early in that race. Moving on now, the city of Santa Cruz, again that council race, you just saw Emily Reilly and Mark Primack on our stage, and you see how they're doing. Reilly and Primack both with 2 of those 4 seats that are available, along with Ryan Coonerty and Ed Porter. Scott Kennedy just 6 votes behind Porter. Tony Madrigal in the mix as well. City of Scotts Valley Council race, we'll check that one out once again. And again, 3 seats available here. Randy Johnson in the lead with close to 31% of the vote. Dean Bustici in 2nd, Cliff Barrett in 3rd, and Debbie Muth in 4th. Again, 0 of 8 precincts reporting in that one. City of Capitola now in the council race there, 2 seats available. Michael Termini and Kirby Nickel with the early advantage. Daniel Passino, Colleen Corrigan Armstrong, and Richard Halterman also in the mix in that race. Soquel Union Elementary Board, I believe, is our next race, or we still got Watsonville. I apologize. Let's go to Watsonville. We got 3 districts to focus on there. First one, District 1, you may have just seen it. Those early results, they are unchanged from the last time, and now we'll quickly look at District 2. Oscar Rios with the lead over Richard De La Paz Jr., 64 to 35 in that race, percentage-wise. And now we'll check out District 6. That's the one that I believe is pretty much uncontested for Judy Daring Nielsen, and again, yes, it is. Nielsen with no problem in that one. Now we'll head to the Soquel Union Elementary Board race, I believe. 3 seats available in this race, and as you see, 4 candidates vying for those 3 seats. Judy McGooden with the early lead, Kevin McGibbon right behind her, and Ted Donnelly in 3rd, Keith Cahalan in 4th at this point, but again, it's early there in Soquel. Aptos La Selva Fire Director, that's a race we're going to keep you posted on, and here are the early results on that one. Marilyn Ramos with the lead over Michael Weatherford, Park Cuseo, David Barbin, and Chuck Anderson in the mix as well. 3 seats available in that Aptos La Selva district race. And finally, Ben Lohman, Fire Director, 2 positions available here. William, is that Biff Belts with the lead, and Roger Boots Lee, I like it. We got some nicknames here, a little flavor. And Robert Hampson in 3rd, 2 seats available in that race. You see Biff and Boots with the early lead in that one. We were going to maybe look at some state propositions, but we'll save that. No, we will do it now. It's just been handed to me. Hot off the presses. Here we go. Prop 68, the gambling initiative. No votes, no precincts, no percent, no nothing. Don't have anything for you there. Prop 69, the felon DNA database. We do have numbers on that. And the yes on 69 with a 66% to 34% lead here early. And that is 9% of the precincts reporting on Prop 69. Prop 70, the tribal casinos gambling initiative. No has a 74 to 26% lead, 8% of the precincts reporting in that one. And finally, stem cell research, Prop 71. It will save lives, say its proponents. And to this point, those proponents are feeling good because it's a 62 to 38% lead for Prop 71, 8% of the precincts reporting in that one. That'll do it for now. We'll see you in 15 minutes. Back to Bruce and Rachel.
Welcome back. We're very pleased to be visiting with John Laird, the incumbent for the State Assembly of California, joining us here on Community Television, along with Bruce Bratton, my co-host. It's so nice to see you in person.
Oh, it's great to be here.
We usually just hear your voice on the radio, so it's good that you're back in town. How has this campaign gone for you? You've been all over the place, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been all over the state, but in the district I've been doing 8 or 9 things a day, and so I'm actually happy that the election is ending. But
just sit down.
Well, but it's been good. It's a healthy thing. Theoretically, I don't have to do this, but it's very important, and I really have taken a lot on issues from a lot of the different people and groups I've been meeting with.
And what are you hearing in chorus to you that they really want you to accomplish should you get reelected?
I'm hearing a lot about environmental issues, a lot about education and K through 12 education in addition to higher education. People just worrying about there being enough resources to offer a quality education. But I think I'm hearing about affordable housing in ways that everybody's for affordable housing, everybody talks about it, but I've heard the urgency in ways that I just haven't heard before, and I'm going to take that into the next session.
Well, it's certainly a key issue, especially in this area where we just hit the median of $650,000, which is sort of a frightening number.
Well, you were just talking with some of the city council members about UCSC, and that's one place where housing can be impacted on a policy level. It's the same thing with CSU, Monterey Bay. Giving them enrollment money deals with housing on the peninsula. There's a first-time buyer program here that needs to be extended legislatively. We need to make sure the state money's coming in for the revolving fund. And there's just bunches of different things that can be done. And so that's what I'm going to take back from all this.
I was wondering, John, about our governor. I watched the interview with Arnold and Leon Panetta. And I was just amazed at watching Leon melt all the way through the whole thing. And at the end, I mean, it was just startling. Has Arnold convinced you that he's really our greatest governor in the history of the world?
Well, he hasn't personally convinced me, but his 70% poll rating is always very persuasive at certain moments. And
should we trust him?
Well, I'm a politician. I don't think you should trust me totally. But the thing is, I had more bills signed by him than any of the other 80 assembly members. And I sent him bills that were landmark on the environment. My Sierra Nevada Conservancy bill was the only bill he signed in a public ceremony. I sent him a natural heritage tax credit. I sent him a major civil rights bill on employment discrimination that didn't get a single Republican vote on a committee or on the floor on either side, and yet he signed. So it's hard for me to be totally critical because on environmental issues and on civil rights issues and on choice issues, he's broken from his party. Mm-hmm. But even with those, if there's a really strong business position, if the Chamber of Commerce or the building industry takes a strong position on an environmental issue, he will generally cleave toward them on that. Mm-hmm. And I always joke there's nobody left in the Timber Products Association to lobby because he's appointed all the lobbyists to positions in state environmental agencies. So while I'd give him a B on environmental issues and I'd give him a B on certain civil rights issues, there's other things that he's just not there on. And tonight we're seeing that Proposition 64, which I strongly opposed, which will repeal the rights of people to sue polluters for pollution, he was steadfastly for. And the 3 strikes, law, he strongly opposed in ads that were running right up to the close of polls in California, although in the early returns that is passing. So, the one thing in the interview with Leon that I thought was really interesting is the public really wants bipartisanship. And one of the things I took from all the talks in the district is they loved the work I did on a bipartisan basis in this last session, because I had 2 big initiatives that were done completely working across the aisle. And he was quoted with Leon as saying, oh, when the Democrats and the Republicans agree, I smell trouble. And so everybody wants bipartisanship, but if he sees it, he's skeptical. And so there was a real mixed message there.
What about the budget? Now, of course, you took this big gamble on the whole bond thing, and now you have to live with it for a while. What does the next year look like ahead for the budget?
Well, and I'm about to move into a leadership role in regard to the budget, which hopefully will be announced soon. But to resolve the budget, to put the state on a pay-as-you-go basis, we need to do three things. We need to do the debt finance bond that the voters passed. We need to do some cuts, and we need to do some new revenues. At least one major tax. And he's been willing to support the first two, but he has yet to go to the third. And this year, we're going to decimate higher education or K through 12, or further decimate environmental protection, or really hurt health services across the state unless there's a willingness to enact a tax. And I think that's his challenge. Will he go there in the next few months? And I'm optimistic that he will, but he could mix it with a new tax, some cuts in Medi-Cal and education, and some smoke and mirrors, and we will have to figure out how to raise money or cut somewhere else to restore the cuts he might propose in Medi-Cal. So there'll be lots of challenges as we head into the next session.
And didn't he cut a deal with higher education that they took some cuts now in exchange for restoring them later? There was a lot of that kind of promising later on things will get better.
Oh, he did, but the legislature was not included in that deal, and we didn't go along with it. We restored his cut to outreach programs. We restored Cal grants. We didn't lower the eligibility for Cal grants, and we refused to cut enrollment under the state's master plan for higher education in the first time in modern history, and even funded growth to CSU and UC. So the question is what's the status of the compact? He proposed big cuts in exchange for it coming back after 2 years, and we would not go with some of the major cuts, and in the end he had to sign the budget with those cuts restored. So it leaves it up in the air about where he will really go on higher education in the next session.
What do you think is happening with the future of the Assembly as of tonight? I haven't been following all the rest of your
I checked the absentees, and in the absentees, Democrats are behind in a couple of races right now, and actually 3, although one is, something like 40 votes. And I think we have a chance at a status quo. That we were looking pretty good.
That's a chance at the status quo.
Yeah, right now it's 48 Democrats, 32 Republicans. We have a chance at picking off a seat in San Diego and an outside chance of picking one off in the East Bay. And then they're heavily challenging us in Long Beach, in Torrance, and with Steve Poizner in Palo Alto and Redwood City, where he dropped in over $6 million of his own money. But Ira Ruskin is ahead by about 1,000 votes in the early returns.
So with redistricting, you're kind of our last remaining local boy up there in the state, sadly enough. How does that make you feel, and what kind of extra obligations does that sort of place on you to represent Santa Cruz in this area?
It puts a little added burden on because for the first time, I'll be the only person from the Monterey Bay area in the legislature. And not only that, my assembly district will overlap with 4 Senate districts, and the senators will be from Palo Alto, San Jose, Merced, and either San Luis Obispo or Santa Maria. And while one could argue that it's more people representing the area, maybe that's helpful, this will be only the second Senate term in 50 years where no one from Santa Cruz County has served in the state Senate. And when somebody from here serves on the other side, they have the relationships, they know the issues, they intuitively understand what's going on. A simple phone call will get them rolling and doing things in the Senate. And now we'll have to educate people on what the issues are, what it means, what the difference is. And I think it'll be tough. I mean, I feel lucky because I'm going to move into the leadership in my second term, and I'll be in a position to leverage things for Santa Cruz and Monterey. But in 4 years, when I'm term limited out, then somebody's going to have to start over and be by themselves in the process.
Sounds like a lot of field trips out on the Monterey Bay are in store for whoever wins. Hopefully on a calm day.
Or a lot of homework, too, because, it's going to be a 4-year job to find somebody who can do that.
Well, I've lived in Santa Cruz for 36 years, and I know everybody that is married to each other and has different last names, and who served in the city council 25 years ago and have relationships with them, and I found it hard to get totally up to speed in Monterey County, still understanding that there's major public figures married to people I know that I didn't know had different names and were married and those kinds of things. And for somebody that's outside the area and represents 850,000 people, that's just an impossibility.
You'll have to hand out the old black book with notes. We've run out of time, unfortunately. It's so good to talk with you, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. We'll all be watching television and listening to the radio the rest of the night.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Pleasure to
coming.
be here.
And now we go back to Joel Domhoff with more results.
Rachel, Bruce, and John Laird, thank you very much, folks. We told you there was a number of races we would focus on each time. However, the county election website is a bit slow tonight, so those 7 races that we've been focusing on throughout the show, we'll put those on the back burner for now until we get fresh numbers. But for now, we want to show you some results from other races we have yet to report on. First, Pajaro Valley Fire Director, 3 seats available here. You see Pablo Barreto, Bob Stokes, and Joan Peros with the early lead, but Russell Farnham not far behind in that one. 0 of 21 precincts reporting that race. San Lorenzo Valley Water Director, 2 seats available in this race. You see here David Ross and Jim Nelson with the early lead. Gordon Stewart Jr., Paul Storm, and Dan Terrell on the outside looking in early in that race. Boulder Creek Recreation Director now. Let's see what's going on up there. 3 seats available. Eric Hammer, Heidi Lindsay, and April Terrell with the early lead. Eric Barber and Thetis Salmons still very much alive in that race. Santa Cruz Port District Commissioner now. We'll take a look at that race. 3 seats available in this one. Bill Lee, Ron Miral, Jim Thoits in the lead in that one. Lou Mata and Paul Cogswell trail in that one. Next, we want to go to Santa Cruz City Measures. We'll take a look first at Measure L. We'll see what the results are here, and as you can see on your screen, 64% yes to 36% no in that one. That, of course, the mail ballot elections majority bill, Measure L. Measure M now in Santa Cruz. This city measure we have not looked at yet. We'll take a look at it now. This was a term limit clarification bill. Yes vote 76% to this point, no just under 24%. So the yes looks like it's got a commanding lead there. Measure N now in Santa Cruz. Let's take a look at that. Publishing ordinances on the internet. The yes vote there close to 77%, 23% on the no. You see over 5,000 votes already cast. Again, a lot of absentee ballots being cast here. Finally, in Santa Cruz City Measure O, the Santa Cruz City Clerk preserved measure, 0 of 43 precincts reporting here, 87% yes, so it looks like a commanding lead for the yes in that one. And Capitola Measure P, the quarter-cent sales tax, you see here the yes vote with close to 63% to this point and 37% for the no. A couple other state propositions we want to take a look at. First, Prop 63, the Mental Health Services Bill, 54% to this point say yes, 45.5% no. Again, that is Prop 63, the Mental Health Services proposition. Proposition 66, reforming the 3 strikes law, just under 56% of you at this point supporting that bill. 44% say no to Prop 66. And in California, the race for the presidency, John Kerry has 52%, George W. Bush 46%, with just under 11% of the precincts reporting on the presidential race. We'll be back in 15 minutes with more, hopefully some fresh numbers for you. But for now, let's go back to Bruce and Rachel.
Hi there, back to Bruce and I'm Bruce, and that's Rachel, and this is Santa Cruz Community Television, and right here with us right now tonight, Ellen Pirie, County Supervisor. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Welcome, welcome. So, how's it going with Measure J? We have to talk about Measure J because everybody in this end always talks about Ellen Pirie down at that end of the county.
What's the matter with her supporting Measure J?
Yeah, darn. No, what's your feeling about it now? Well,
about whether it's going to pass?
Yeah.
It's looking very bad.
Is it looking bad?
Apparently the absentees are in, and the absentees are pretty bad.
I see. Okay, right here, I can, from what we have here is 51.2 say no, 48.8 say yes, and I don't know if that's the latest.
But it needs 66%.
It needs 66
that's right.
to pass, so that seems unlikely. I think that's just absentees, but, you know, unless There was a huge difference between the absentees and the regular voters.
There was a surprise about the Pajaronian coming out. Did that surprise you, or were you anticipating they came out against the widening?
It did surprise me, and especially the reason they gave, which was wrong. I mean, the reason they gave for opposing it was that if there were construction costs overrun on the highway, that the other projects wouldn't get money, which is simply wrong. That all those projects are guaranteed a percentage of the Measure J funds, and the highway is guaranteed a percentage of the Measure J funds, regardless of what it costs. So,
well, let's not do a postmortem yet. It's really only the absentee ballots, and you really can't tell from them. There's only 31,000 of those compared to the whole county voting. So we'll wait and see.
That's a good attitude.
Well, you never know. So let's talk about how big of an issue that's played in your election campaign. Is that all people ask you about, just like we just did?
Well, you know, I ran for election in the primary, and it was done there. So I'm not up now, fortunately. Right. But for the second district, it's the issue.
Yeah.
It's a really, really big issue in the second district because people are spending enormous amounts of time on the freeway, and it's incredibly frustrating, and the ambulances can't get through, and so on and so forth. You've heard it all, I'm sure.
Now, you have only one, seat open from the supervisors, and that's up. And I wondered if you could comment on either of the two candidates that are running and how that might change the makeup of the soups and whether that's going to change the vote counting.
I don't think it's going to change because I think Supervisor Stone is going to be elected. He's been in that seat for a year now, and I think he's doing a very good job. I think he's going to be elected, and I think we're going to continue on. So,
let's talk about water issues, which are always a favorite. Desal plant, that's on the table, off the table, continuing discussion, study, or is it getting closer than just that?
Well, I'm not really in the middle of that, so I don't know. I hope it's moving forward. I mean, I think we have to come up with something. We can't just keep talking about how we don't have enough water. Oh, well, let's build some more houses. We have to do something, so I know that Soquel Creek and the city of Santa Cruz Water are looking and seeing if they could do a desal plant, and I hope something works.
Your district is a really in-between kind of a thing. I mean, I've heard so many issues that, because we always talk about Santa Cruz being one kind of a place and Watsonville representing another kind of a place, and you are in an area where the voting can go wildly in different ways on a whole lot of issues over the past number of years.
You've noticed that.
Yes, I've noticed. Yeah, and I'm sure you wake up in the middle of the night noticing them too, huh?
It's a big district, and it has tended to kind of go from one way and then the other and then the other. It seems, I'm pretty middle of the road kind of person, and that feels right in the second district. It's really pretty moderate. It's heavily Democratic, but pretty moderate Democrats, and the Republicans that are there are pretty moderate Republicans. So it's, for me it feels like a really good fit.
Well, a lot of these issues also don't seem terribly partisan if you really pick them apart. I mean, roads and transportation and housing and things like that, and water don't always come down at all on
it is so good that the race, that the supervisors, it's a nonpartisan race, and that's a very good thing. I have a relative who's up in Seattle, and in Seattle it's not. It's a partisan position, and the county commissioners there, it just sounds incredibly dysfunctional. And here it's nonpartisan. You're elected or not elected based on what you're doing for people. Are you making a difference or not, in a positive way? And I think that's much healthier.
Well, we're in a time, obviously, where counties are being sapped of money by states, and that we are very, hard put to figure out how to pay for things. How do you see the time ahead being in that kind of a context, and what kind of hard choices do you feel like you're going to have to make as a supervisor?
I think the next year is going to be difficult, but I'm hoping that it's just one more year and that then things are going to get better. And I'm hoping that we're coming to the point of working out a financing arrangement between the state and local governments that will improve the situation. We seem to have made a step, and it's on the ballot tonight and today, so we'll see what happens. But it seems like a step in the right direction towards stopping the state from continually just taking money from local government. Because people, I mean, local governments, it's what, you know, it's your police, it's your roads, it's, you know, it's those things that are so important to people because it affects them every day.
Well, isn't there a measure that's supposed to prevent that from happening?
There is. Measure A1, and its passing was the last thing that I saw. I hope it does the trick.
You're crossing your fingers.
I'm crossing my fingers. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that it's not another one of those, oh, well, we thought it would work, but there was this clause that said something, you know, you can take the money in emergency or something. And, you know, we're in emergency a lot, so.
What's an emergency after all, right?
Yeah, we've been in emergency for about 3 or 4 years now. So, but I'm really hopeful that measure and the commitments that the governor has made will actually come to pass.
One of the things that we were getting a lot of here, back to Highway 1 and the widening again, was the criticism or just the realization that all the big money for the campaign to support Highway 1 widening was coming from Granite Rock, Granite Construction, and all of those enormous trucking companies. And the opposition, at least from what we saw up at this end of the county, was, you know, from people and not so much from the corporation. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I guess it's hard.
Everybody who'd make bucks off it, whether, you know,
Right.
they were supporting it.
Right, although there certainly is no guarantee that any of those companies would make any money. None at all. I mean, they're not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. It would be going out to bid. It would, you know, if they had the best bid, fine, great. If they don't, they don't get any of it. But I know that Granite Construction and Granite Rock both want to see it widened, you know, possibly partly for business reasons, but also because their employees and their trucks and everything are on it every day. And the businesses in the county are just losing a lot of money because of the time that's spent in that traffic. And I think, you know, that criticism I think is somewhat unfair because, you know, I know there's 100,000 people out there or something who want to widen that highway, but who's really going to pay for flyers to send out on a ballot measure? It's just, you know, people just don't do that. They might contribute to a candidate, but to contribute to a measure like that I think is pretty rare.
I know when Robert Levy came out, I was just thinking about another past issue when she came out in favor of the wing spread development. A lot of people look back and say, gee, she really made a big mistake there because she was out of office the next time around. Do you think that your support of widening Highway 1 could cost that to you?
I think the support for widening the highway in the 2nd District is overwhelming, overwhelmingly strong. Everybody may not want to pay for it. We would all rather that the state or the federal government comes and does it for us, but the support to widen it is huge.
And finally, in our last couple of minutes, we're obviously in a big night from national elections. How do you think Santa Cruz County voting went? And do you think that there were any problems at the polls that you've heard, or did everything go smoothly?
I haven't heard of a thing. That doesn't mean there weren't any. But in the Board of Supervisors office anyway, we didn't hear about any of the problems. One of my aides was out working, and another one of the secretaries was out working, and I know they were working from about 5 a.m. And, you know, I don't know if they probably still are. So it's been a tough thing. They had to not only do the voting, but they were responsible for making sure that it met all the federal guidelines for accessibility. So they were having to learn to calibrate, is the slope of the ramp correct? Is all the signing the right height? Is the the lettering the right height? And
lots of details you don't think go into. But as the focus goes on these other counties that have had bigger problems, you wonder how Santa Cruz County panned out and whether we did okay in terms of access.
I'm curious, and I certainly hope we did. We had a huge number of people voting by absentee ballot. I think people wisely felt, you know, I just don't want to have to stand in line for hours. I'm going to take care of it ahead of time.
And we didn't see lots of challenges at the polls, which is probably a good thing.
Not yet. At least we haven't heard of them.
Not in Bonnie Doon, anyway.
A really peaceful
So did you vote today?
Yeah, of course.
And did it go smoothly?
Yes, and there were no lines because I got there early.
Oh, good.
Very smoothly.
Good.
Thank you, Ellen Terry, so much for being here.
Well,
we appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Good. We'll see what happens. Hopefully tonight, sometime, maybe midnight.
I hope so.
Maybe,
I hope
whatever.
so.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now we toss it back over to Joel Domhoff, way over there in Election Central.
All right, Bruce, thank you very much. And we are back with a fresh set of numbers for you folks. We're going to head down south to Watsonville and take a look at the measures that are on the ballot in that city. First, we'll take a look at Watsonville Measure Q. We'll see what the early results are from that race in just a moment here. It should come up on screen. We'll also be looking at R, S, and T as that comes across the board, but Measure Q will be first. We're trying to be alphabetically correct here at Community TV. So Measure Q, do we have a slate for that one? There it is, the quarter-cent sales tax. The no votes winning here early was 61%, just about 39% for the yes votes, and of course that's 0 of 21 precincts reporting in that one. Measure R, the sales tax initiative as well. We'll take a look at that race from Watsonville in just a moment here. We'll get it up for you. Our computer's just a bit slow. There it is. The Sales Tax Advisory Initiative in Watsonville. And again, the yes votes there, about 74%. The no's with 26%. Again, that's early in that one. Watsonville Measure S now. We'll take a look at that initiative. As you see here, 52% of Watsonville citizens say no to Measure S, while 48% say yes. That is a low-rent housing initiative, and obviously it's close, so we'll keep an eye on that throughout the night. And there you see it finally, Watsonville Measure T. We had it up momentarily. That is the fee repeal initiative, a 911 fee repeal. And to this point, the no votes was 63%, the yes with 37%. And again, that is just early in that race. Shifting our focus now, we'll take a look at the congressional races. The 17th district will be our first one we'll look at. As you see here, Sam Farr, as expected, with the huge advantage here, 69% of the vote. Mark Risley, the Republican, 27%. And Ray Glock-Brunick, the Green Party candidate, with just over 1% of the vote in that district. 14th congressional district race now. We'll take a look at that one, see what the results are here. Anna Eshoo, the Democrat, with 69% of the vote. John Haugen, the Republican, 28%. Brian Holtz with 3% of the vote in that race. 15th state Senate district, I believe we'll take a look at now. Let's see what pops up. There you go. Peg Bernard, the Democrat, again trailing Abel Maldonado by about 20% in that race. So Bernard with the 12,000 vote deficit, as you see there on screen. And finally, 11th state Senate seat. Do we have that result up? And we'll see if it does come up. Again, that is the district which we expect Joe Simidian to dominate. We do not have it. So we do expect, as I said, though, for Simidian to dominate there. Couple of quick updates on propositions. 1A, local government revenues. 84% is the yes total to this point. The no's was 16, so 1A should pass without a problem. Prop 59, the public records proposition, 83% yes there. Prop 60, party rights, 67% yes, 33% no. Prop 60A, surplus property, 77% yes in that one. And finally, a Senate race update for you. Barbara Boxer with 54.5%. Bill Jones with 42% in that race. That's going to do it for now. Actually, we do have one more. Joe Simidian, as we told you, there we finally got it up. District 11, 65% of the vote for Simidian, clearly outclassing John Zellhofer to this point. Let's go back to Bruce and Rachel for more. We'll see you in about 15 minutes, folks.
Rachel Ann Goodman, welcome back to the stage here at Community Television of Santa Cruz County. Thank you for tuning in. I know a lot of people are channel surfing around all the results, and we have some local results for you regularly. We also have interviews with people running for local races. One of those people is Randy Johnson. He is the incumbent running for the Scotts Valley City Council. There are four people running for 3 seats, and one of which is his. So either he hangs on to it or doesn't. Scotts Valley has a number of issues that have been kind of perennial, one of which is water, of course, and the MTVE problem. And there are others, I'm sure. But what have been the biggest ones for you in this race, particularly?
Well, I think one of the kind of perpetual
and ongoing issues with cities and counties, for that matter, of course, are the fiscal problems that each of us face. And what cities try and do, of course, is provide services to their citizens. It's what we're best at. And for the longest time, we've been fighting just to keep our money available away from the state. And I haven't seen how 1A is doing, but I think most local politicians hope and pray that that passes, because I think you need a certain amount of autonomy in order to effectively plan and do the things necessary that your citizens require and want out of their local government.
Now, you get a lot of your money from sales taxes, is that right?
That's correct.
So would this encourage or discourage more large box stores and that type of thing to get sales taxes? Because you could keep them if it passes, right?
Yeah, I think most cities do, in fact, always have an eye on the retail sales. We are a city that has very low property tax rates. We just get, out of every dollar that's collected in terms of tax dollars, we only get 4 cents. So we're very, very poor in that regard. So we do in fact, rely a lot on sales tax. And like most cities and most counties, that has taken a dip as well. So to answer your question about big boxes, I don't know if it's in the cards, if it's what the citizens really want, but there's always that tension between really, what people want and what actually works economically and financially for any interested businesses that might come to your community.
I was wondering about, Scotts Valley is sort of famous for your high-tech businesses, but they're coming and going, and people are being laid off and new ones are being hired, et cetera, et cetera. That's got to change your fiscal responsibility and knowing where your money's coming from, along with real estate value.
Right. Well, I think the high-tech boom, I think, again, everybody in California, in particular Silicon Valley, and we're adjunct to Silicon Valley in many ways. I mean, we provide the community where people drive over the hill, can still enjoy a beautiful lifestyle, if you will, and still have jobs over the hill. But at the same time, homegrown jobs on a variety of levels are so much preferable to having to send your people for driving purposes, to being away from your family and so forth. And as far as the high-tech jobs that are available in Scotts Valley, yeah, they do tend in some ways to come and go. But our mainstays, of course, I think are Seagate, the Borlands, Rainmaker, a lot of high-tech Nokias in there as well. So we have a lot of high-tech companies that are in fact staying. So I kind of like to accentuate the positive.
Yeah, when Borland left, that was a big deal. But someone has bought that campus.
Right, and Borland actually still is there.
Oh.
They've downsized slightly.
Right.
Oh, let me just interrupt with this one here. We have some results from 4 precincts on Measure J, and yes is at 48.5, and no opposing the widening is 51.5. That's only 4 precincts, but that's Measure J widening Highway 1, which seems to affect everybody's lives.
Yeah.
Right. And needing to get 66%, so it's not doing well.
That's right.
Yeah, we're not going to write the obituary yet, but I think...
We'll need a postmortem already. The mortuaries are out there waiting. Let's talk about water again, because we just skipped over at the beginning. I know you have a big problem with MTBE leaking under the ground, and it's a huge problem in terms of the amount of water the city can provide its residents. Do you have to just put a cap on the number of houses built in Scotts Valley at a certain point because you just don't have the water hookups for them?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and in many ways, you just mentioned the MTBE problems and some other problems with the aquifer. And ironically, I think, and it's not exactly proven yet, but a lot of the ability in order to kind of correct that problem takes up an awful lot of water in its own right. And so that process itself is having, I think, a good effect. I think things are working out well in terms of cleaning up process, but it takes a very long time, and it takes a lot of water to do that. The good thing about Scotts Valley is that they do very meticulous studies. I believe it's AB, I'm not in the water district, but the AB 3030 requires that they have groundwater studies continually. As far as, we're pretty proud of the fact that our recycled water plant was the first in the county. And as that comes online, it is online right now, but as more customers start to use that, we feel that it's going to be able to rest the wells that are there and allow us to still be able to build moderate growth, which we've really done in the last 10 years. It's been pretty steady.
Well, I want to thank you for coming by, Community Television, chatting with us, and good luck on your election tonight.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Nice seeing you.
It's been pre-recorded earlier today by producers at Community Television.
And we're also saying too.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I didn't get to say goodbye. Well, hey, quickly take some.
Hi, I'm Jeff Dunn of Community Television, and I'm down here in Watsonville 2nd District with City Council candidate Oscar Rios. Oscar, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. And I'm really glad that Community Television is here in Watsonville, and it's going to stay here for a long, long time.
I hope so, and we're happy to be here. Oscar, this is your second time around running for City Council. You served as mayor. You served 3 terms previously on the council. What drew you to run again?
Well, actually, you know, I wasn't planning on running, but a lot of people came forward and asked me to run. A lot of us felt that we have not been given the representation that we deserve in the last 4 years. And a lot of us felt that we need to have a stronger voice, a more open government, and actually a way that we can express our desires that we have in our district. That's why I stepped forward.
What are some of the primary issues down here in the 2nd District and in Watsonville in general?
You know, a lot of them are similar to a lot of them exist for almost the whole county and the city. But here particularly, the question of housing is critical. Jobs, safety, and one of the biggest problems is that we have grown so much that traffic is one of the biggest problems.
You know, 20 years ago, the role of Latinos in Watsonville city politics was pretty minimal. Now it's a driving force. How do you look back on those 20 years of change?
Well, you know, Jeff, we knew that it was going to take a while, you know, to have the voter grow. And this is what we're seeing now. We knew that in '89 when I first came in and people criticized that I was the only Latino, it was just going to be a matter of time when we were going to see us grow as a strong voting bloc. I think that now a lot of education, a lot of voting drive, a lot of citizenship, a lot of education by many different organizations has augmented our numbers. And I also think that people are more interested in deciding who is going to decide for their lives, their future.
What do you see the next decade happening down here in Watsonville? You know, it's been a lot of growth, as you said. Probably in the next decade, Watsonville will be the largest city in Santa Cruz County. What do you see the future of Watsonville being?
Oh, I see it very bright. I see us here playing a very strong role as we already playing in the county. You know, we are the economic backbone of this county in agriculture and also in the service industry. But I see the young population that we have now moving into better jobs, and therefore we have to bring jobs. I see us in the next decade as a way of contributing to develop this county and this city as beautiful as it is, to make it better, and to make it better for all of us, and also to cut the barriers that have existed for a long time, which people that still try to pit us, you know, them and us. But we have to develop and grow as one. All of us developing a community that we can all feel proud.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Good luck today, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
All right. We'll be right back. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jeff Dunn, and I'm back with Richard De La Paz, incumbent candidate for the 2nd District in Watsonville City Council election. Richard, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. This is your second time running. You served 4 years. What are the issues that have propelled you to run again?
Jeff, from a city council standpoint, I would say number one issue. When I started out, I was independent. Even though I'm a registered Democrat, I was independent, and I've held to that. And I think Watsonville definitely needs it. I think over the last 4 years, you've seen me stay independent, and the council pretty much has been balanced, and I want to continue that balance, and I don't want to lose it, Jeff. And so that's one of probably the single largest factor that convinced me to run again.
What are the biggest issues in the 2nd District that you see right now?
You know, Jeff, every I would say politicians are going to say jobs, education, housing, and I believe all those to all be true also. But I would say specific to the 2nd District, we're standing here, we see a lot of Victorians. Probably 4 or 5, I'd say about 50, maybe 60% of our district's Victorian, and there's a lot of equity in those homes, but they haven't been maintained how they should have. You know, I'm the owner of Victorian, and there's a lot of beautiful Victorians around this neighborhood. And I think the city just needs to make a concerted effort to reinvest in these Victorians along with the homeowners. And I don't know how exactly we're going to do that, but I think that probably is the single biggest issue specific to District 2. And given that, you know, and I tell people, you know, over my 4 years, we built about 1,500 houses.
So I think new development's fine and dandy, but I really believe strongly that we need to take care of our old housing stock. In about 10 years, Watsonville will be the largest city in Santa Cruz County, surpassing the city of Santa Cruz for the first time in 150 years. What do you see the future of Watsonville being?
You know, what I tell people is I say you're looking at it. You know, I'm 27, my wife's 24, we've been married 6 years, we've got 2 kids, 6 and 2. For the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you know, it's going to be a struggle for us to have good jobs and work at home and balance our family life along with the growth of Watsonville, you know, such as the new businesses. We've brought a lot of businesses to town, Jeff, and I want to continue to do that, but, you know, we're getting younger. You know, I remember knocking last time, and there was a lot of 14, 15-year-olds, and they couldn't vote. And this time I go around, and I say, you know, well, you just moved in here. They said, no, we've been here my whole life, but I just wasn't old enough to vote. I said, probably 30 to 40% of my district's young, so we're getting younger. You know, I don't know if that's good or bad, but we're getting younger, and so we're going to have to increase our education level so we can get better jobs and attract more businesses here to Washington.
What lessons have you learned in your last 4 years of serving on the council?
Keep your head up. You know, I've had some great times. I was elected mayor at only my second year on my 26th birthday. That lasted for about 6 months. But I probably shot higher than anybody has in a short amount of time, and I've probably fallen a lot faster than anybody has in that same amount of time. And I'm here, and I got a great shot to be reelected. Walking the streets and walking the district, you know, people are willing to forgive me, and you know, I think we're going to find out at 8 o'clock or maybe 11 o'clock this evening if that's the case.
Okay, well, I wish you well. Congratulations on the campaign. We'll see you soon. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Take care. Okay, Jeff Dunn back with Watsonville City Council member Anna Ventura Claries. Anna, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to talk to you about the 2 important measures here in Watsonville today. The first one being Measure Q. Why is that so important to the city of Watsonville?
Well, the city of Watsonville, and overwhelmingly supported by the city council, the entire city council, decided to put Measure Q on the ballot because we wanted to protect our services. We don't want to end up having to have cuts and having to have facilities to layoffs. And so we thought we'll take it to the voters and ask them would they be willing to raise small sales tax in the city so that money could come in to save and protect our services. And we asked them for an advisory vote as well, asking them if they vote yes, can we use that money for fire, police, and park and recreational services.
Okay, what about Measure T? That one's also a significant measure down here in Watsonville today.
Yes, because Q is, we want a yes on that, and T, the city council also approved to say no on T. And T would help us to add a few dollars a month to the telephone bill so that we could protect our 911 emergency responses. And the people that are on Lifeline, which we have a high percentage of people here in Watsonville, almost 50% or a little over 50% are Lifeline users, and they are exempt from having to pay that additional fee. So we're asking people is to vote no on T because they want the T proponents want to make sure that we don't have that additional $2 on the telephone. And we're on the city council saying no. Please give us those $2 so that we can have proper response time for the fire and the police when if there is an emergency at your home.
A lot of people who live in cities don't realize that this is a period when the state has cut significantly funding to cities. Has that been tough for you down here in Watsonville?
Well, we have been able to be very conservative for the last few years because we knew that it was going to get uglier and uglier as far as the state taking money away from us. And that's why, as a member of the League of Cities, all the cities of California finally said enough of the state taking our money away without any notice to us cities, which means any notice to us taxpayers as well. And then we're left as a city to deal with, a loss of $500,000 in the middle of the year. So also Proposition 1A that affects all cities, we're asking people to say yes on 1A, which means we are asking the state not to take our money unless it's an emergency.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for being with us today. Good luck in the election.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And our thanks to Rachel Ann Goodman and Bruce Bratton, the hosts of our last hour of coverage. They had to get out of here before they could say goodbye, but we do thank them for their work. Update time, folks. Let's get it going here. Measure J, of course, that highway widening. Measure J, county sales tax, of course, 2/3 of the vote needed here. And as you see, 5 of 279 precincts now reporting, and still the no's with a lead. So it appears as if the yes won't even win a majority, at least if the early numbers are any indication. Moving on now to the 5th District Supervisor race. We told you about this one in our preview. Mark Stone and Stephanie Aguilar in this battle. Stone, as you see, with 56%, Aguilar with 43% in that race. Moving on now, back to the local scene, Santa Cruz City Council time. 2 of 43 precincts now reporting, and as you see, Emily Reilly with a bit of a lead now over everyone else. She's got 20% of the vote. Ryan Coonerty looks good to grab one of those 4 available seats. Mark Primack, Scott Kennedy, and Ed Porter also in the mix, along with Tony Madrigal, as you saw there. Moving on now, Scotts Valley City Council race. Let's take a look at that. Still no new numbers, but we'll keep you updated anyways. 3 seats available. Randy Johnson, Dean Bastici, and Cliff Barrett with the lead. Debbie Muth still on the outside looking in there in Scotts Valley. Capitola now, the city council race there. Let's take a look. 2 seats available. Michael Termini and Kirby Nickel with those 2 seats as of now. Daniel Passino, Colleen Corrigan Armstrong, and Richard Halterman all in the mix there. 0 of 8 precincts reporting, so we're still waiting for some fresh numbers there. Moving southward now, the Watsonville City Council races. 1st District 1, Manuel Berseman and Gabriel Gonzalez. You see there Berseman with a 38-vote lead. It looks bigger percentage-wise, but just 38 votes separating those 2 contenders. Moving now to District 2 in Watsonville, it's Oscar Rios and Richard De La Paz Jr. You see there Rios has about doubled him up, 101 votes to 55 for De La Paz. But again, no precincts reporting there. That's just absentee results. And finally, District 6, Judy Daring-Nielsen running unopposed, and clearly, obviously, she's ahead there with 97%. Measure K, no, what was that? What are we doing now? We're going to the 27th Assembly, folks. John Laird, the Democrat, we anticipated a rout for him, and as you see there, 68% of the vote for Laird, the Democrat, over Jack Barlick, the Republican. Moving a bit further, 28th State Assembly, that of course is the Simone Salinas district, and you see there Salinas with a 60 to 40% lead over Robert Perkins, the Republican. And then finally we'll end it up now with Measure K, and we'll check the results from that race. You see here the 9/11 fee repeal initiative, the no votes with nearly 70% there, the yes with just over 30. We'll be back soon with more updates, but first we want to welcome our hosts for this hour, Mark Halfmoon and Deanna Zachary. Let's go to those 2.
Hi, I'm Deanna Zachary, and this is Mr. Halfmoon. Doug Keegan is running for a seat on the Pajaro Valley School Board. He's an immigration attorney with the Santa Cruz County Immigration Project. He's running for the seat that Carol Roberts held. He's running against real estate agent Georgia Lynn Acosta and David Mares, an auto detailer. Doug Keegan, welcome to Community TV.
Thanks very much.
I want to talk about one major issue in the race. The school district has some of the worst scores of the entire state of California.
Yeah.
What would you do to help improve those scores?
Well, I think we need to work on the language difficulties that are really hampering the students from scoring higher on these test scores. And I think that's really a question of trying to promote academic progress despite language difficulties. That may include using or continuing in native language instruction for certain academic topics, and perhaps moving children towards more proficiency in English as well at the same time. You know, I think we need to really explore the different programs that have been successful in helping our students move from limited English to proficiency.
Why do you think Pajaro Valley has had such bad results on the statewide testing?
Well, you know, I think it's really it's a demographic question. We have some of the poorest students
in this entire region. We also have the highest percentage, perhaps, of limited English speakers. And I think the combination really has affected our ability to have decent scores.
And your belief is really that you have to promote Spanish and English?
Well, I think we can't ignore the fact that many of our students are not at a level of proficiency in English sufficient for them to be able to necessarily progress academically. So yes, I don't think, I would hesitate to say I'm promoting Spanish, because I would not say that I want to maintain the Spanish, let's say, levels with our students. I want to move them towards English proficiency, but at the same time, we have to deal with the reality that many of our students just aren't equipped to jump into, let's say, English-only instruction. They've got to be moved slowly and at a pace that is pedagogically sound for them to be able to then excel in English.
There's another major debate in the Pajaro Valley School Board. It's to split the districts.
That's right.
Aptos, and then, which would be predominantly white, Watsonville, which is predominantly Latino. You're opposed to this split.
That's
Tell
correct.
us about the pros and cons of splitting the districts.
Well, I am opposed, and I'm firmly opposed to splitting the district. This is an issue that really the district has grappled with for close to 10 years now. And the state has made it very clear that they would not allow splitting the district. So to me, continuing to discuss this issue, to continue to waste a lot of energy and resources and attention really diverts us from the real issues that our school district needs to face. And those are, as you said, test scores. Getting those test scores up, working together, maximizing our resources. It's been recently revealed that a lower percentage of our resources are going into the classroom than in other comparable districts. So we have some real issues that we need to solve in the Pajaro Valley.
Doug, a lot of this has been made in this race, in these races for school board down in the Pajaro district, about racial tensions and divisiveness. How much of a role is that playing in this election? Do you think we'll see voting along racial lines? And if there are tensions, how will they be resolved once the voting is done?
Well, I think that in a district where you have such polarized demographics, where you have maybe 70% or higher of a Latino population in the southern and central part of the school district versus 80 to 90% white in the northern section, race is there. Race is a factor. But I really think that there are socioeconomic issues at play, and I really think that accusing anyone of racial motivation is perhaps inflaming the whole situation. Because I do think there is sincerity on the part of the people who are pushing for secession, and they bristle at the idea that there's racism involved. So I think that we really need to just set this debate aside and let's move on.
Do the people in the southern part of the district, mostly Latino region, do they see it more as a social economic issue? And I know that people would get offended with being accused of racism, but how do the people who feel that they may be victims of discrimination?
Exactly. Yes, very definitely. I think the people in the southern part of the district are very sensitive about the fact that here you have a wealthy, predominantly white part of their district that wants to split off. I think that that really touches a raw nerve with a lot of the people in the rest of the district. And it's one of the reasons why I'm opposed to splitting the district, because I think it sends the wrong message. Even if the message of the people in the northern part of the district has nothing to do with racism, it's going to be perceived as racially motivated. It's also going to be perceived as a value judgment, let's say, that somehow the rest of the district is inferior to the people in the northern part of the district.
What about the other race, the other race in Pajaro Valley? That's between Karen Osmundson and Dan Hankemeyer.
Right.
Do you have any feeling one way or the other about that and how that may turn out?
That's been a great race, and the two of them have really been campaigning hard for that seat. And, you know, I think one of the elements involved in that race is that you have Dan Hankemeyer, a 12-year veteran, versus Karen Osmundson, newcomer to the whole political scene and certainly the school board. So I think it's perceived by a lot of people, a lot of observers in Watsonville and the Pajaro Valley as really the old guard being threatened by newcomers, new ideas, and people who are saying, we can do better. And I think that's really the message that Karen has tried to bring.
There was a recent audit, and it showed that a lot of money is going to school administrators. How would you change that and make more of the money go to the schools?
Absolutely. I think that definitely has to be on our agenda. That has to be on the table with whoever gets elected, because it's showing that a larger percentage of our budget is going into administration and that a smaller percentage is going to the classroom. With all the budget cuts that the Pajaro Valley Unified School District is facing, we can't afford to just ignore the fact that fewer and fewer resources are going into the classroom. And when we talk about low test scores, we've got to ask ourselves, is it partly a function of our neglect and our misappropriation, perhaps, of our resources? So we've got to look at administration. That's one of the few areas where we have some control over the budget and say, well, wait a minute, how can we move things around? How can we make the administration more efficient and less costly so we can divert some of those funds where they're most needed, and that's in the classroom.
No, I personally know some teachers in PVUSD, the Pajaro Valley Unified School District, who are very good teachers, and they all compliment the teachers. They say that I have people who worked in other parts of the state who say this is the best group of teachers they've ever worked around. Wow. And I'm hearing that they work a lot of long hours and that are relatively unpaid, relatively low paid for the hours that they work.
That's right.
And are we losing teachers in Pajaro Valley?
I think we are. I think we have a real morale issue. Mm-hmm. I think that teachers feel that they are not paid comparable to other teachers in other parts of the state. And you know, the thing that struck me about the teachers and in the course of my campaigning is just how dedicated our teachers are and how really they are sacrificing so much because they really care about the students. And boy, I feel that as a school board, we should be trying to preserve those teachers and trying to boost their spirits as much as possible. And I'm very encouraged that those people are working in our district, because with their enthusiasm and with their commitment, maybe we can make a difference. You know, I ran into so many people who said, oh, forget it, you can't make any difference. And I say, no, I think there are some very promising elements to our school district that really can make a difference, and one of them are the teachers.
The Pajaro Valley High School hasn't opened yet because of a mold problem. What's the status of opening the high school?
Well, it looks like it's been delayed. But there is, I guess, determination to get it open as soon as possible. They have already opened in another site. They took over a site that was used as a charter school, Alianza Charter School, for the high school temporarily until the school is finished. But there's really, to the best of my knowledge, no indication of when that will be. But I think the school, let's say the student body, the administration, the internal structure of the school, they're trying to maintain that and trying to promote that, but they don't have the physical structure yet.
Doug Keegan is running for the seat on the Pajaro Valley School Board. He's an immigration attorney with the Santa Cruz County Immigration Project. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Now we're going to talk to Joel about some election results.
All right, thank you very much. It's update time, folks, here at our update desk. Let's begin here with the 15th State Senate race, the 15th District, the battle between Peg Pinard and Abel Maldonado. Let's take a look and see if there are any new numbers on that race. We'll also be taking a look, of course, there you see, well, there it is. Peg Pinard now with 40% of the vote, Abel Maldonado with 56%, so Pinard cutting into Maldonado's lead just a little bit since our last update. Moving forward now, let's check out the results on Measure J. The widening of Highway 1 needs 2/3 of the majority here to pass, and as you see, the yeses are losing just 47% of the vote. They need that 4 to turn into a 6 and become 67%. Otherwise, widening Highway 1 will not happen, at least with this initiative. Moving on now, the 5th District Supervisor race. That, of course, the battle between Mark Stone and Stephanie Aguilar. Stone with 56.5% of the vote. Aguilar, with 43%. But again, no new numbers there. No precincts reporting. Those are still just preliminary totals. Santa Cruz City Council race now. We'll take a look at those numbers. Remember, 4 seats available here. We now have 5 of 43 precincts reporting. And as you see, Emily Reilly with 20% of the vote. Ryan Coonerty with 18%. Mark Primack and Ed Porter trying to hang on to those last 2 spots over Scott Kennedy and Tony Madrigal. That's a race that could be decided not until tomorrow morning. Let's move northward to Scotts Valley. Check out the city council race up there. 3 seats available, 4 candidates vying for those 3 seats. Randy Johnson, Dean Bastici, and Cliff Barrett, the leaders. Debbie Muth still on the outside looking in. But again, 0 of 8 precincts reporting, so no new numbers there. Capitola City Council race now. Let's take a look at that one. We'll check out the city of Capitola. 2 seats available. Kirby Nickel and Michael Termini in the lead. Daniel Passino, Colleen Corrigan Armstrong, and Richard Halterman also still alive. 1 of 8 precincts reporting now out of Capitola. Moving on now, let's head southward to Watsonville. The city of Watsonville Council race there. District 1, Manuel Berseman with the 38-vote lead on Gabriel Gonzalez, but again, just 0 of 2 precincts reporting. And District 2 race in Watsonville, we'll take a look at that one. There you see it, Oscar Rios and Richard De La Paz. The same numbers there, a 46-vote lead for Rios in that race. Let's head on to some proposition numbers now. The Prop 63 for mental health funding. You see there the yes with an 8% lead, 25% of the precincts reporting there. And Prop 65, this would protect local revenue from the state sort of raiding local government's revenue. And here you see no with a 60 to 40% lead with 25% of the precincts reporting in that race. A couple other propositions we want to tell you about. The 3 strikes. Proposition 66, the yes with a 12% lead there with 14% of the precincts reporting. Prop 67, the emergency medical services phone tax. The no's with a huge advantage there, 68 to 32. Couple others. Prop 69, the felon DNA database initiative. The yes with a 2/3 of that vote, 66%, 34 for the no's, with 18% of the precincts reporting. Prop 70, the Tribal Casinos Act. No, 74%. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Prop 71, stem cell research. 60 to 40, the yes with the lead there, 14% of the precincts reporting. And Prop 72, we're calling it the Walmart initiative here. Of course, that's the Health Insurance for Employers Act, Prop 72, the no's with a 53 to 47% lead in that one. And lastly, I want to give you a couple national updates. The Bush-Kerry election for president. Bush with a 51 to 48% lead in the popular vote and a 249 to 196 electoral college vote lead. Of course, 270 electoral votes needed to win. In California, Kerry with a 6% lead. And finally, the Senate race, Barbara Boxer now has increased her lead over Bill Jones by up to 15% now, with about a fourth of the precincts reporting in that race. We'll see you in 15 minutes with our next update. Back to Mark and Deanna.
Thank you, Joel. Tonight we have a guest in our studio. We have Tony Madrigal, one of the candidates for Santa Cruz City Council, running against 6 other candidates, including 4 incumbents. And right about now, it's looking like that most of the incumbents are ahead in the polls. Tony Madrigal, how are you feeling about your chances of moving up in those numbers?
I still feel good about it. It's still too early to call. Some of the early numbers that we're seeing are mostly the absentee numbers, as you probably know. General election wisdom tells me that the early absentee voters tend to be more conservative and may not identify with my message of being the only renter, of bringing diversity, maybe not. And so in addition to that, there's it's just too early to call.
You got some pretty good endorsements from County Supervisors Marty Wormhout, Tony Campos, and who are some of the other people who...
Well, there's some national figures such as Dolores Huerta, co-founder of the United Farm Workers,
Simone Salinas,
Assemblymember Simone Salinas, County Supervisor Tony Campos, I think you mentioned him, and also a couple of local city council members that are in office right now, Tim Fitzmaurice, Mike Rotking, as well as Labor, GLBTA, Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender Alliance, UCSC, College Democrats, and I'm really proud to say I also got the endorsement of the co-chairs of the African Black Student Alliance, and then in addition to that, last Thursday I got the endorsement of a former Assembly member Fred Keegan. So just to name a couple.
Tony, there's about 20% Latino voters in the city. What are their interests, and are they being represented on the city council right now, or what would you bring to the city council to better represent them?
Well, I feel that I would bring the relationships that I have with a lot of the people in the Latino community, a lot of different neighborhoods, a lot of parents that I know of children that I used to tutor after school, a lot of parents of children that have children that are in the Beach Flat Soccer program, which I was one of the co-founders of. And I would bring those relationships to the council, and that would help bring in more people into the process that currently are participating. I think here in Santa Cruz, not only in the Latino community, but also just in the entire community, there's a huge disconnect between what I see lower class, working people, a lot of people of color that don't feel that they can approach someone from the city council because they don't identify with anyone, which is a big deal. I mean, I'm sure you could say that when Emily Reilly and Cynthia Matthews got on the council, that there was more women that felt that they could approach the council. But some of the issues that are important to the Latino community are also issues that are important to everybody else. Jobs, housing, the economy, programs to seniors and kids. Those are all things that are very important to everybody.
Paul Elerick, it looks like highway, the whole issue about Measure J, particularly as people perceive it as the widening of Highway 1, looks like it's losing right about now. Is this what you expected?
Well, that was what our goal was. We wanted to defeat Measure J with a simple majority. I know that they had to have a 2/3 majority to pass. That's not the message that we wanted to send the community. We wanted to run a campaign that let people get out and voice their concerns and tell, in this case, the Regional Transportation Commission, really what they felt about widening the highway. And the only way to do that is by a simple majority. Our concerns were that if we didn't run a campaign, we ran a full-fledged campaign with volunteers and mailings and everything that a full-fledged campaign does. That without that, they could have, and I don't mean to belittle our opposition, but we didn't see much of a campaign from the Yes on Measure J. We saw a campaign, there were some flyers and some absentee mailings, but you know, we didn't want to come back in March facing a special election again about the highway and be, you know, they would be coming at us with, say, they won 65% or something like that. We would have been viewed as obstructionists and keeping people from what they really wanted, if that's what they wanted. Our message that we wanted to get out to the public was, and from the public, is they don't want that. They want alternatives. They know what happens when you widen the freeway. The best description that I've seen that fits into our beliefs was the Watsonville Poweronians editorial position last Saturday, where they rejected Measure J, and they recommended a no on Measure J. That was the message that we tried to get to the people, and I think we did.
Well, I know that the proponents of Measure J portrayed it pretty much as not just about the highway, but about transportation in general in the county. Was this a referendum on or a vote about Highway 1 and the widening? And if that's so, there seems to be a big divide. How will we solve those problems that everyone perceives as being real things, being stuck in traffic on the highway?
I think the traffic is here. It's not going to go away. And we have to sit down and we have to solve the problem with some alternatives. There are things that we could do right away that would help traffic right away with metering ramps or metering lights on ramps where they can be installed. We need to talk about our alternatives. We need to step up to the fact that we have a rail line that's imminently purchasable, and it runs from Davenport to Watsonville. I mean, any county in the state of California would just feel blessed if they had that opportunity to look ahead for alternatives to freeways. That it's a lot of work, a lot of planning, there would be a lot of money, but at least it's something that would be get people out of their cars. People are still going to drive cars, but we have never seen I've never seen any city in the United States that has solved the problem by building more freeway lanes. And we've asked time and time again to the Regional Transportation Commission's elected officials, show us a city in California, anywhere as close to the size of Santa Cruz, smaller or larger, where it solved the problem. And nobody can do that. The answer is that there isn't any.
I've heard people, though, who are happy with the widening of the freeway in San Jose, Milpitas, 880. They said, look, that's been widened. Now it's easier to travel that. What do you say to those people?
I say they must travel at different times than I do. Because when I travel on 85 during the rush hour, granted, if you're not over there during the rush hour, you travel no sweat. During the rush hour, the stretch of 85 between 280 and 880 is really slow.
Right. I mean, 880, say, coming out of San Jose, up Milpitas towards Oakland, Fremont, that has been hugely widened.
It's been hugely widened, not just one lane. And right after it was widened, the Mr. Roadshow in the San Jose Mercury News had a headline story about, where's the relief? And we ran that on our website because, they didn't get any relief right away. But it absolutely, I'm not denying that it was really bad. It was stopped. It was stopped. We think we're stopped. They were really stopped.
Well, more specifically, the people who feel very much that they are stuck in their cars and they are really miserable, and that now that this hasn't passed, what more specifically can we do? What will be on the ballot next for alleviating the traffic and transportation problems here? I know we talked about metering on the freeway and things like that.
That's one thing that we could do right away. I think they need to bring everybody to the table. We asked. Our Campaign for Sensible Transportation has been meeting regularly for almost 3 years. And we've asked in writing, almost 2 years ago, could we sit down and bring some other people to the table and talk about alternatives, such as the rail, stop cutting money from the transit district, add money to the transit district, make special runs to Cabrillo, make special runs to UCSC. And people would vote on I think people would support a tax measure that paid for things like that. How about a tax measure that put the school buses back on the roads, taking kids to school so their moms and dads don't have to drive them and get on the freeway?
Ed Porter has talked about this new, some people would consider a radical idea of personal rapid transit, which would involve building a whole infrastructure. Do either one of you have any knowledge about that or feelings about how that
I've
might...
seen Ed's presentation, and I think it's got a lot of potential, and that should be right up at the top of the list of things to look for alternatives, especially in Santa Cruz. Especially in Santa Cruz.
Tony, what's first on your agenda if you get elected tonight?
Go get some sleep, I'm sure. I'm gonna get some rest. I can't wait for tonight to be over. I can't wait for the results to come in so I can know if the voters decided to bring some change and some new leadership to the council, or if they felt comfortable with who they got now. Either way, I feel this is a victory. It's a win. I think it's a strong signal that Santa Cruz does support change, does support new leadership, does support bringing diversity to the council. Those are my issues, my messages, in addition to the 4 points that I've talked about before: housing, jobs, the economy. I feel there's a lot of people here in Santa Cruz that are like me. They liked it here, so they stayed here, and they're scraping by. They're renters. They're trying to find a job here locally. They find themselves having to commute over the hill, for example. They find themselves having to double and triple up in their home to be able to pay a rent that's a lot cheaper, but at the price of some privacy, at the price of space. And I really want to focus on the things that I talked about.
What could you specifically do for housing, say?
Well, for housing, I think that when you're on the city council, you have to when you elect somebody, I think you vote for someone that has the attitude that you want on the council. I want to bring more of a can-do, of a yes attitude. I want to start having a serious conversation about what we're going to say yes to here in Santa Cruz. Are we going to say yes to improving our local economy? Are we going to say yes to providing more housing, more affordable housing? Are we going to say yes to trying to find or trying to promote economic development so we can have the types of jobs that are sustainable here in this community? I've always said throughout my whole campaign that I think that we can do better as a city, especially when it comes to our economy, because we have the campus and we have the coast. And I don't think we should be scraping by the way we are. But we are.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the campaign itself. What has that been like for you? We live in a city that considers itself to be politically progressive. The city council is known to be politically progressive. And as pretty much an outsider, someone outside of that machine, isn't an uphill battle running for office to make your name known. Ryan Coonerty has a pretty well-known name. What's it like having an uphill battle? And I have another question after you answer that.
Well, it is just that. It's not easy, but it's a lot of fun. I think I've connected most with the voters when I've been going door to door, knocking on the doors of the voters, talking to them. A lot of people, especially, I'll give you an example, on the east side. I live on the east side. People are hungry for representation over there. A lot of folks have simply said, it's about time. You got my vote. You're an east sider. They don't even want to hear the rest of my spiel. Other folks have simply, they're hungry for change. They want to change the city council makeup now. And they say, are you on there now? No? Okay, you got my vote. Simple as that. Some folks, I tell them I'm a renter. Oh, you're a renter? Wow, we need a renter on the council. And so I've had a lot of fun. At the same time, it has been challenging at times because I don't feel like I'm part of this inner machine. However, I do feel that the process is supposed to be open to anybody. I mean, that's what I said. I said, you know, isn't this the American way? Isn't this the American dream? Shouldn't I be allowed to be able to run and build a campaign? Because I think that there's a need for change. The answer is yes. And I think some of the people that supported me have shown it by sending me campaign contributions, putting their signs in my yard, my signs in their yard, and just showing me support. So it's been a lot of fun, and it has been somewhat of an uphill battle, but either way, I feel really good about it.
In 1985, there was a Latino man who ran for city council, Mauricio Longoria, and I believe Mr. Hernandez, who was a city council member.
And he got elected in '96 and ran for re-election in 2000. Did not get re-elected.
What do you think about the structure of our city council and the elections? Do you think it might be a little easier for someone who's not as well known to get into office if we had like district elections, like elections that were divided?
Preaching to the choir on that one.
Because in Watsonville, for example, for many, many years, they were a city with a lot of Latino population. there's no Latino representation on the city council until they went to district elections. Do you think that would work here in Santa Cruz?
Well, I'm a huge supporter. I believe in a representative form of government, and it's very evident right now that, for example, like I said, on the east side, there's a huge need for a representative form of government in the city of Santa Cruz. People on the east side all know that every single council member that's on the council now lives on the west side, and I know that the east side of Santa Cruz would benefit greatly. I know that if I only had to walk a district as opposed to the entire city, I'd probably run around 3 or 4 or 5 times. I'd probably get to know every one of them by name. Of course, it'd be a lot easier. It'd be less money that I have to raise, which is another issue of mine. I don't think I should have to raise as much money, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. I think it's about time that we hear from Joel again. Joel, what do you got for us?
Mark, we've got a lot for you, folks, a lot of new numbers in all these races, so let's get right to it. First, Measure J in Santa Cruz, of course, the widening of Highway 1. 24 of 279 precincts now reporting, and you see the no has increased its lead to about 7.5% in that race. Looks like Measure J could be going down. 5th District supervisorial race, now, Mark Stone and Stephanie Aguilar. Of course, in that battle, let's take a look at those latest numbers. We've got one precinct now reporting Stone with a 15% lead over Aguilar in this one. Again, it's early, but Stone with the lead there. Santa Cruz City Council race now. Remember, 4 seats available. And let's take a look at these numbers. They should be interesting if you've been following us all night. We've got some new ones. I know one of our guests, Tony Madrigal, is making a move. He's now at 13.4%, so he's right there looking for one of those 4 seats along with Emily Reilly, Ryan Coonerty, Ed Porter, Scott Kennedy, and Mark Primack. That one will be decided late tonight, just 10 of 43 precincts reporting. And as you saw, a big-time battle for the City Council here in Santa Cruz. Scotts Valley City Council race now. Let's take a look at that one. Remember, 3 seats available here. Randy Johnson, Dean Bastici, and Cliff Barrett. Looking at those 3 seats, Debbie Muth still on the outside, but a lot of time left in that race. And finally, for City Council updates, Capitola will be our last stop. Let's see what's going on in the city of Capitola City Council race. Here you see 2 seats available. Kirby Nickel and Michael Termini still with the lead. Daniel Passino, Colleen Armstrong, Richard Halterman still with a shot there. Just 1 of 8 precincts reporting in that one. Time to check school board races now around the county. Let's start up in the valley. San Lorenzo Valley School Board race. Let's take a look at this and see what's going on up in the valley. As you see, Area 5, 0 of 38 precincts reporting. Lee Dakota with the lead over Carl Bergman by about 7%, but again, it's early in that race. We'll stay up there in that area of the county. Scotts Valley now our focus, the school board race there. Let's take a look and see what's going on in Scotts Valley school board race. Should be coming up here momentarily. We appreciate your patience with computers. There you go. City of Scotts Valley Council race. That's okay. 3 seats. Again, you see Randy, Dean, and Cliff with Debbie Muth on the outside. What do we got now, folks? Santa Cruz School Board race. Let's give that one a shot, see if we can pull that one up. The school board race in Santa Cruz. Let's take a look, see if we've got any results from that. I believe that's the Ken Wagman race. And we'll see if we can get a graphic to come up here momentarily. If not, I can start reading some things off of the paper. There we go. Santa Cruz City Schools, Area 1. Ken Wagman, as I said, with that big-time lead, 65% of the vote for Wagman to John Wasserberger's 34% in that race. Bonnie Doon School Board. Let's see if we can get some numbers in that race. Up in Bonnie Doon, that school board race should be coming up here momentarily. And here it comes. 2 seats available. Lisa Palm and Michelle Whitesell with the early lead, but Michael Zucker and Frank Wiley still very much alive in that race. Again, 2 seats available in Bonnie Doon. Live Oak School Board now. We'll take a look at that race. What's going on in Mid-County, the Live Oak School Board race. Let's take a look at that one right now. 2 seats available, 2 of 14 precincts reporting. Susan King McLean and Barney Brickmont with the early lead. James Bresnahan and Charlie Roos still with realistic hopes in that race. Finally, school board, well, actually two more, hopefully. Loma Prieta, our next stop on this tour of the school board races. What's going on in Loma Prieta's school board race? Well, here you go. 2 seats available. Patricia Rasmussen and Lydia Dobbins with the early lead. Pat McEntee and Randy Wheaton still with realistic shots there. As you see, 0-5 precincts reporting. And Soquel School Board will be our last school board race to take a look at. Let's see what's going on in the city of Soquel. Right here, 3 seats available. Judy McGooden, Kevin McGibbon, and Ted Donnelly with the lead. Keith Cahalan still with a shot, 8 of 29 precincts reporting in that one. And our last race that we will take a look at will be the 15th District, the state senate race there, the battle between Peg Pinard and Abel Maldonado, and Maldonado with a 14% lead in that one. About 10,000 votes separating those two. That could be close throughout the night. Let's go back to Mark and Deanna, who I'm sure have more special guests ready for you. We'll be back for our final update in about 15 minutes.
Thank you, Joel. We're here now with Mike Termini, who's running for Capitola City Council, and Ed Porter, running for re-election in Santa Cruz, for Santa Cruz City Council. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So first let me ask Mike. Mike, in Capitola, who are you running against? How many candidates?
There are 5 other candidates running. There's Kirby Nickel, there's Daniel Passano, Colleen Corrigan Armstrong, Rick Halterman, and Jacques Bertrand.
And what are some of the major issues that are being discussed right now?
Right now, Capitola's finances are paramount. It would seem everyone has something to say about that. It seems like Measure P is going to pass, so that should ease things up.
Measure P is?
Correct. Measure P is a 1/4% sales tax for Capitola. And it looks like that's going to win. So that will do a lot to increase our cash reserves as well as do some capital improvements, improve the streets.
Okay.
It's much needed.
And Ed Porter, you just moved up into one of the 4 highest vote getters in Santa Cruz County, city of Santa Cruz so far. How's that feeling? You were below that a little earlier.
Well, it's certainly encouraging to see a positive number like that, but you know, it's really a horse race. The spread is like 100 votes between the different candidates, and anything could happen. Last time I saw, there was only 14 precincts reporting out of, I think, 83 or something like that. So it's a long night. It's a long night.
Running as an incumbent, do you see this election as sort of a referendum on the city council as it exists now?
I actually hadn't seen it that way. I'd seen it more as a race, certainly between 6 pretty good candidates. And frankly, the discussions have been, well, there's certainly 7 and now 2 additional write-in candidates.
Right.
So you could say there's 9 altogether. But the 6 that are in this horse race, apparently, I think are very high-quality candidates. And the debates between all 7 candidates have been very useful to the city of Santa Cruz. I think there's been a great many important things discussed, and certainly we ought to do this kind of thing more than we do, and we shouldn't just do it all every 2 years. We ought to have these kind of discussions on an ongoing basis. It'd be much healthier for the city.
And Porter, what have you brought to the city council since you've been elected?
Well, I think I've brought a voice for a great many people, and I think for seniors, you know, I've done my best to represent them, for young people, and also just the idea that people in the city, probably in any city in my opinion, but people in the city want to be more connected with the council. They don't want it to be them, oh, did they do this, and oh, did they do that. And I've always been a campaigner for having people be more closely connected with the decision-making process, even if it takes longer. You know, a lot of times we have a lot of big decisions to make in this city in the next 6 months. And the people in the city want to be a part of that. They don't want somebody down in City Hall deciding for them, and they'd have to say, oh, did they do that? You know, I'm really sad about that. I think people want to feel that they're a part of these decisions.
What about the diversity on the city council? We had Tony Madrigal just moments ago saying there's not any representation of Latinos right now on the city council. What's your response to that about the lack of diversity as it stands?
Well, it's an old question, and you know, if that was the only reason that you put people on the city council, I guess that he's absolutely correct. But frankly, I
am involved with Latino people and involved with African American people in my capacity when I teach at Santa Cruz High School. I feel like I've worked very well with those populations. And I can certainly represent those communities in Santa Cruz. So really the question isn't so much do you pick someone because they're a Latino or you pick someone because they're any other minority, but rather does the person that you pick represent those communities well?
Well, he also talked about being one of the only renters running. I don't know if any of the incumbents are renters. And he also talked about labor and people who are working people, and whether or not they felt represented when they went to the council. And one of the reasons I bring that up is because many times I've heard people go to the council and maybe speak to Mayor Reilly when she was the mayor, Emily, on the council and say, you know, and she would respond, well, yes, I'm a business owner, and so I'm also a business owner, and I can relate to what you're saying. Do you think that there's any disconnect there with, is there anyone to say, yes, I'm a renter, who can really understand what renters are going through, or people who are Latinos or people of color who can look at an individual and say, this person, I don't necessarily have to explain things to them. They may know where I'm coming from, because I've heard people say things like that. I've had to meet payroll. I'm a business person, so I know how to do this. Not to put you on the spot, but do you think that maybe there may be, I've heard some criticism of the city council in Santa Cruz that we have these at-large elections and that mostly people from the west side or who are very familiar or inside of a machine, a political machine or system, are the ones who get elected. What do you think about district elections, elections where people would have less doors to knock on and less miles to walk on precincts?
I used to be interested in district elections, and I think they work really well in some circumstances. The last version of district elections that was proposed for Santa Cruz had kind of a stacked deck and was going to manipulate certain seats first so that immediately there'd be a chance to have a major change on the council right away. And I didn't think that was a good idea. But certainly an absolutely objective district election system might be a good thing to look at. I don't know. But in the last time, it was not a good idea. And you asked quite a series of questions there. I really think that the reason Tony's showing in fourth place right now is for some of the very reasons you said. But I got labor endorsements, and I got endorsements from a very diverse group of people and organizations, and the reason is that they see me as the person who calls them back, the person who goes down there and sees what the problem is that they want resolved, and people are happy about that. So that's what's really going to count in the long run, and not so much any particular stereotype or ethnic affiliation or anything like that. And so, you know, if Tony gets elected, it'll be for the very reasons that you said, and more power to him if he does that.
Mike Termini, I want to bring you back in here because I want to know more about what's happening in Capitola, especially with housing, because there's not much room to grow in Capitola in terms of housing. What will you do on that issue?
You know, I've been working as a planning commissioner and also meeting with the city council on meeting the housing element, which means that Capitola is going to have to provide over 300 housing units to house people in the next few years. To look at Capitola, it doesn't look like there's any place to build anything. But there are some good opportunities that we've located and identified. There are a few that are being acted on with some developers. There's some opportunities for mixed use around the Capitola Mall and also around Highway 1, where we can have small neighborhood retail with apartments above. And I think Santa Cruz has done a great job with that. They've really promoted mixed use, and I think that's the way it's going to go. I feel a real need to provide housing in Capitola that's affordable, primarily for the people who work in Capitola. We have a large workforce, especially in the city. The fact that our city employees and our police can't afford to live in Capitola is just not acceptable, and we need to change that.
Has Capitola ever considered rent control? The cost of living in this region is so high, and you have so many working class people who complain constantly about being able to afford to live in the area, and you talk about the housing crunch in Capitola. Is that something that's been seriously considered in the area?
Well, it's more than seriously considered. We hold very dearly to the rent control we have on our mobile home parks. And we've been very successful with the litigations that have taken place in keeping rent control. And one of my platforms that I ran was enforcing that and really supporting it. as a matter of fact, the mobile home renters have come across and sort of chipped in for the legal fees on that, and we've been very successful. We've been helping mobile home owners purchase their parks, and one by one they're coming down to where they're resident-owned parks, and that's been a real boon to the citizens.
What about transportation and
parking?
Parking
in Capitola Village.
You know, if I could wave my magic wand, I'd build a second deck on that parking lot tomorrow. It's not going to happen. It's a 5 or 10 year project. We're constantly battling parking in Capitola. One of the things that will help is the rail trail. Getting that rail service and getting the county supervisors to let us extend that rail service after we purchase the right-of-way from Aptos through Capitola and into Santa Cruz. People may or may not realize that 60% of the people who visit the Santa Cruz boardwalk also come to Capitola, and they do so by getting in their cars. If we can eliminate that, we can go a long way to solving both of our problems.
I'd like to ask Ed real quickly before we go back to Joel. Now that it looks like the Measure J may be defeated, probably will be, I've heard you speak before about this personal rapid transit, building a whole new infrastructure for a new system of transportation. Do you plan, if you get reelected, to do more work on that?
Well, I certainly plan to make sure that the community hears more about it. The community has to make these kinds of transportation decisions. I think it's something that we really should look at. Not only would it be a great transportation system, but people would come here, high-class tourist traffic, and we can use that. And I just have to say that Measure J is a very good example of what I see happening tonight of not involving all of the constituents in a decision. And how many organizations do you know that could throw away $11 million the way this Regional Transportation Commission has done recently and denied what the people want in this county of acquiring the rail right away? I think we're going to have to re-examine that. Maybe we can still save that $11 million after this vote tonight.
I'm with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. We have Ed Porter, he's running for re-election for the Santa Cruz City Council, Mike Termini for the Capitola City Council. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Now we go back to Joel for some election results. Joel.
All right, thank you very much, folks. And this is our final update of the evening here on Community TV's coverage. So pay attention. You can't go to sleep till you hear these final results. Let's start with that controversial measure that you just heard our guest discussing, Measure J. Of course, 2/3 of the vote needed to pass this measure, and right now the noes with an 11% lead in that one, so it's not looking good for the highway widening Measure J. Let's move on now to the 5th District supervisorial race and take a look at that one more time. This, of course, the Mark Stone, Stephanie Aguilar matchup. 2 of 71 precincts now reporting. You see here Stone with the 15% lead over Aguilar, about 1,000 vote difference in that race. Moving on now, the Santa Cruz City Council race. Remember, 4 seats available here, and it's been hotly contested throughout the night. You've heard from many of the candidates live here in our studio, and let's take a look now and see where things stand. Half the precincts now reporting 4 seats available. Emily Reilly, Ryan Coonerty, Tony Madrigal now has moved into 3rd place. Ed Porter in 4th, with Scott Kennedy and Mark Primack now on the outside looking in. Half the precincts reporting. Again, that's going to be a close race to watch throughout the evening. A good matchup there in Santa Cruz. Scotts Valley City Council race now. We'll take a look at what's going on up in the valley. This was Debbie Muth on the outside looking in earlier. We'll see what these latest results tell us. Muth still on that outside looking in position. It's Randy Johnson, Dean Bastici, and Cliff Barrett with the 3 seats there. Remember, 3 seats available. Those 4 candidates trying to get there. 0 of 8 precincts reporting in that one. Capitola City Council race now. We'll take our final look at that one. And in just a moment here, the graphic should come up. The Capitola City Council race, as you know, has been close throughout. And there you see it, 2 seats available. Michael Termini, Kirby Nichols still with the lead. Daniel Pacino, Colleen Corrigan, Armstrong, Richard Halterman, all in the mix. 2 seats available, 2 of 8 precincts reporting in that one. Our last look now southward at the Watsonville City Council races. 3 districts that we're focusing on. Of course, the first one, District 1. We'll take a look at those latest numbers, see what's going on there. Again, it's manual Berseman with the lead over Gabriel Gonzalez, 64 to 36% in that race. And now we'll check out District 2 in just a moment. Of course, this is the Oscar Rios, Richard De La Paz Jr. matchup that's been much hyped in Watsonville. And let's take a look at these numbers and see if De La Paz has cut into that lead. And you see still no precincts reporting there. De La Paz has about a 45 vote deficit to try and cut into once we get those final results. And the last district we'll take a look at will be District 6 in Watsonville. Of course, this is Judy Daring Nielsen running unopposed, so even if our computer fails us, safe to say that Daring Nielsen will win this one. And there you see it, 97% of the votes to Daring Nielsen here early on. We're going to end with a little bit of alphabet soup here, a bunch of city measures on tap, and we'll start with Santa Cruz City Measure L. We'll go all the way to Watsonville T and all points in between. First, Santa Cruz Measure L. 22 of 43 precincts reporting. 64% of you in Santa Cruz say yes to Measure L to this point. We'll see how that one unfolds. Measure M will be the next one in Santa Cruz we take a look at, and we'll have that up momentarily for you. There you see it. The yes votes in this one with 73%, 27% for the no's. That, of course, the term limit clarification measure, so Measure M looking like it will pass, at least early on. Now we'll move on in the city of Santa Cruz to Measure N. That's N as in Nancy coming up here. So let's take a look at these numbers. Appreciate your patience, folks. We're doing our best. Santa Cruz, Measure N. There you have it. The yes votes with 76%, the no's with about 24%. So again, another big-time win for the yes vote if these early numbers are any indication. Finally, in Santa Cruz, we'll end up with Measure O. We'll take a look at that one and see what's going on with Measure O in Santa Cruz momentarily. There you have it. The Clerk Preserve Initiative Measure O, and again, yes, with an overwhelming lead there with half the precincts reporting. 86% of you in Santa Cruz say yes to Measure O. We're going to move southward now to Capitola, and their only measure on the ballot is Measure P, so we'll see what the citizens of Capitola, our newest friends here on charter cable, and of course that's the quarter-cent sales tax initiative, Measure P, 2 of 8 precincts reporting, and the yes with a 61 to 39% lead there, as you see, so it looks like Measure P will pass in Capitola. Further southward now, let's head on down to Watsonville and Measure Q in that city, and again our first foray into Watsonville politics here on Community TV. And you see here Measure Q, the quarter-cent sales tax with 0 of 21 precincts reporting. This is all absentee ballots, and you saw the no's with the lead in that one. Watsonville Measure R now. We'll take one last look at that one for you in the South County. Let's take a look at that. Measure R. The yes vote with about 74% in this one. This is the sales tax initiative. Measure R, again, looks like it will pass in Watsonville. 2 more to go in Watsonville. We'll go next to Measure S, and we'll see what the citizens in South County thought about this one right now. Measure S coming up, and there you see it. That's a tight one, folks. 52% no, 48% yes, and that's just absentee votes. You see a difference of less than 100 in that one, so that one won't be decided for a while. And finally, our last race of the night will be Watsonville's Measure T. We'll take a look at that one to end up our look at the entire alphabet here. This, of course, the 911 fee repeal initiative, and you see here the no's with about 63% of the vote. In Watsonville, 37% of you say no. So that's going to do it, folks. We appreciate you sharing your evening with us here on Community TV. For all of our people here, our host, Geoffrey Dunn, John Sandidge, who else? Mark Halfmoon, Deanna, Zachary, Rachel Ann Goodman, thank you. Bruce Bratton, thank you very much. We thank you on behalf of all of the hosts, all of our producers, Ron Holman, Kathy D'Angelo, Craig Judson, Craig Goldstein. I know I'm leaving people out. Maitreya Maziars and Tim Galarnow helping me out here. Our computer geniuses doing a great job all night. Interns, Rachel Bronstein, Catherine Manlin, the list goes on and on. So on behalf of everyone here at Community TV, we thank you for joining us. If you want the latest results, go to votescount.com. So until our next election, folks, good night, everybody.
They felt that turnout was very much their friend, and they were encouraged by these reports from around the country of very high voter turnout. They felt like the higher the turnout, the better for the Kerry side. What we are seeing, of course, is that for every new Democrat that was brought to the polls, at least one new Republican came as well.
All right, Scott Horsley, thank you very much. NPR's Scott Horsley with the Kerry campaign in Boston's Copley Square. This is live coverage of election 2004 from NPR News. I'm Frank Stasio.
And I'm Jennifer Ludden. President Bush leads the Electoral College count, but we're still waiting for results from battleground states in the Midwest.
If the president takes Ohio, he'll be within striking distance of victory, just one electoral vote short of the 270 he needs. But the vote counting could drag on in Ohio.
Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Nevada, and New Mexico also are too close to call. NPR's projected count in the Electoral College now stands at 249 for President Bush and 221 for Senator Kerry.
Republicans will retain control of both houses of Congress. So far, the Republicans have netted 2 seats in the Senate. In South Dakota, Senate Minority Leader Tom Daschle is fighting for his political life against Republican challenger John Thune. The Senate races in Alaska and Florida are still too close to call. Joining us now are E.J. Dionne, a columnist for the Washington Post, and Chris Caldwell, senior editor at the Weekly Standard. Gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Let me ask you both, and I'll start with you, E.J. This business about voter turnout, the Kerry folks did think that if we reached numbers approaching 120 million, which would be far more than last time around, this would be something favorable to them. It looks like that may not be the case tonight.
Right. In fact, that wasn't just the Kerry folks who thought that. I was talking to Republicans who were very worried that if the turnout got to 120 million, the new voters in would be disproportionately the folks that the Democrats and their allied organizations had registered. So I think what we have seen is a real mobilization of Republicans as well. I'd like to go back to this Ohio business that Scott was talking about. Chris and I were kind of fiddling with maps. And Ohio is not important if President Bush could get to a majority without Ohio at the end of the night. And when you look at the map and go through it carefully,
If the president carries Nevada, New Mexico, and Iowa, but loses Wisconsin, he still falls short of the majority without Ohio. Thus, we have a greater likelihood of a big fight over Ohio. And I think what's going to matter there for the Kerry forces are first, how big is the margin in Ohio and how many provisional ballots are there. But I also think they're going to have to make a case that many of these ballots were thrown illegitimately on the provisional pile and should have been counted tonight. I expect that they will also ask, were many of these ballots cast in minority precincts? Is there some form of discrimination here where a lot of people were forced to cast a ballot which now the Bush forces will try to say is tainted?
So, EJ, is Ohio poised to be the Florida of the 2000, Chris, poised to be the Florida of 2004?
I think it's a little different. And the way it looks now, I think that a lot of people are very reluctant to call the race for George W. Bush. But at this point, 95% of the ballots in Ohio have been counted,
Excluding the provisional ballots,
His lead is over 100,000 votes. We don't know how many provisional ballots there are in Ohio, but on top of that, it looks like Bush is going to take Iowa, New Mexico, and quite possibly Nevada. Kerry will certainly take Michigan, and he seems to be on his way to taking Wisconsin and Hawaii. If that's the case, we're very close to an election that ends with Bush 286 electoral votes to Kerry's 248. If that's the case, then the election is going to come to a pretty clean end, and what's happening now is the Democrats are laying a predicate to have it overturned in the courts. I think EJ is right that there will be some claim of irregularity, but that will depend on how big the margin is in Ohio.
All right. Well, our analysis throughout the night, as it has been throughout the campaign season, with Chris Caldwell, senior editor at the Weekly Standard, and E.J. Dionne, columnist for the Washington Post. Thank you both.
Thank you.
NPR's Elizabeth Arnold is covering the Senate race in Alaska. She's on the line with us from Election Central, which is a bipartisan political event at the Egan Center in Anchorage. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, Jennifer.
You've got an interesting Senate race there. The incumbent, Lisa Murkowski, a Republican, her very position there has been controversial.
Oh, yeah. She was appointed by her father, which was a surprise to many Alaskans, and even conservative Republicans were a bit taken aback by it. But, you know, Jennifer, I want to say that you and Frank should be careful. Remember what happened the last time Linda and Robert went to bed and turned over the reins? It just kept going and going. Anyway, here in Alaska, with more than half of the precincts reporting, Lisa Murkowski, the Republican, has stayed in the lead, holding 51%. Her challenger, Democrat Tony Knowles, at this point with about 43%. Good news for the GOP, which has been gaining seats, and some not-so-good news for the Democrats in the Senate, who thus far, correct me if I'm wrong, have only had, 2 pickups in the Senate now, Illinois and Colorado? Yeah. But the race is far from over here. Knowles is famous for close finishes in his assembly, mayoral, and gubernatorial races. Murkowski's never been elected statewide. Her strong showing, pretty important, although nobody here in this hall, as you can hear, has started cheering yet. They know, by Alaska standards, this is still very early in the game. And Alaska, of course, is solid Republican country. It has been projected already for President Bush. No surprise there. No surprise there. The last time this state went Democratic was 40 years ago for Lyndon Johnson. The race here, though, in the Senate is still, as I say, very close. In the final days, it can be boiled down to the ground troops on the Democrat side versus Ted Stevens, the Republican senior senator back in Washington, D.C., who has a lock on the delegation for the last 25 years, and most Alaskans are very nervous about changing that. Although Knowles is much better known here as a politician than Murkowski, who, as we said, was appointed by her dad 2 years ago to serve out the remainder of his term. So if she wins, she's overcome some serious odds here, and if Knowles wins, that'll be the first time in 25 years that the Republican delegation has changed.
And briefly remind us how much how much counting is left there.
Oh, a little over half. So it's early on. It's early here. Very early
someone
on.
cheered.
Someone cheered. Those are house races.
Okay. NPR's Elizabeth Arnold joining us from Anchorage.
Well, at this moment, NPR's projections have President Bush with 249 electoral votes. If the voting holds up as we have projected, John Kerry with 221
electoral votes. Ohio still too close to call. And we go now to NPR's Cheryl Corley, who is with the Ohio Democratic Party in Columbus. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello.
There are some networks who have called Ohio for the president. I'm sure the Democrats are still holding out hope in Ohio, are they not?
Yes, they are. And the state is really living up to its billing at this point because it's become such a nail-biter. And as you can imagine, the Democrats here have gone through several mood shifts. Ballroom is essentially clearing out right now with this latest news. But George Bush and John Kerry knew this state was pivotal. The Democratic and Republican tickets visited Ohio often during this election season, and both Bush and Kerry were in the state for several days this past week, including yesterday, as they tried to raise the enthusiasm level and to get people to the polls. So now these 20 electoral votes are really precious, and it boils down to two things. How well their massive get-out-the-vote efforts work here in Ohio, and secondly, what are the vote tallies connected to the provisional ballots that were cast today? Those provisional ballots are going to be crucial now. Those are the ballots that were given to registered voters whose names did not appear on the rolls. And they are held for 10 days while election workers determine if the voter was eligible before they're even counted.
Well, Cheryl, not only were the candidates in and out an awful lot, but their lawyers were in even bigger numbers and perhaps more in evidence in the state of Ohio. Lots of legal challenges, and I wonder if right now you're hearing Democrats in Ohio talk more about the legal side of this, if they're talking about taking this to court, or if they're still holding out hope for a vote count and a victory that way.
Well, I think that those are all things that are under all of the legal things are under consideration. Both sides have had hundreds of attorneys working on their campaigns from the very beginning. Even the provisional ballots were the subject of a legal battle earlier because Secretary of State Kenneth Blackwell had issued this order that said provisional ballots had to be cast in the correct precinct in order for them to be counted. And that ruling was challenged but upheld. So yeah, the legal aspect of this is going to play a big part, but I think that, those are all things that are being planned, but are being held at abeyance until they really see what happens, both with the regular ballots, since all haven't been counted yet, as well as the provisional ballots.
All right, and at this point, it looks as though George Bush has a majority of 51% of the vote in Ohio compared to Kerry's 49%. Cheryl, can you tell us about what the percentage of vote has been counted? I can't.
Yes, pretty close to 90% of the vote, and also they have about 36,000 provisional ballots at this point, but that is not a full count at all, and they expect many more to come in.
NPR Cheryl Corley with the Ohio Democratic Party in Columbus. Thank you.
We're joined now by David Magleby, who teaches political science at Brigham Young University in Utah. And I want to ask you about the issue of campaign finance reform. We had the McCain-Feingold campaign finance reform bill that took effect this election. It was supposed to cut out a lot of South money, and this is the most expensive campaign ever. A lot of money found its way into the system.
Well, that's right. And part of that is, I think, a success story that's attributable to the passion that's in the country, which was part of the turnout story, but also the willingness of people to make individual contributions to the parties and to interest groups. The McCain-Feingold law made that more important by raising the individual contribution limits. But that's only part of the story. Part of the story is, thanks to Howard Dean and MoveOn.org and others, both parties wedded the Internet to individual contributions in a way we've never seen before.
We just have a few seconds, but can I ask, do you imagine when this new Congress convenes another stab at campaign finance reform?
Oh, I think there's no question. The Republicans are especially eager to reform what they call the 527 loophole. Some of that soft money that you described a moment ago clearly shifted to the 527s. A little more evident, frankly, on the Democratic side than the Republican side. Mm-hmm. We don't have all the figures in yet. It may have been a lot more on the Democratic side.
All right. Well, thanks so much. David Magleby teaches political science at Brigham Young University in Utah. You're listening to live coverage of election 2004 from NPR News.
And this is Central Coast Public Radio, KUSP. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. Good evening. What a night it's been. We are going to update you with some local results, and then in just a little while, talk to some of the candidates for the Santa Cruz City Council. Still some hotly contested seats for that race. TJ Swift has some results for you.
First, let's start with the state results, Rachel. For the Senate District 15, this is statewide. Abel Maldonado, 54.6%. Peg Kennard, 41.1%. For the State Assembly District 28, with 61% of the precincts reporting, Simon Salinas, 58.8%. Robert Perkins, 41.2%. For the State Assembly, with 35% precincts reporting, District 27, John Laird, 67.7%. Jack Barlick, 32.3%. For the State Assembly in District 33, Mr. Jenkins, 33%, and Mr. Blakely, 55%. In Santa Cruz, we have 181 of the 279 precincts reporting. And in terms of City of Santa Cruz, we have 31 of 43 precincts reporting. We have Emily Reilly at 20%, 20.6%, Ryan Coonerty at 19.2%, Tony Madrigal at 14.7%, Ed Porter at 13.7%, Scott Kennedy at 13.2%, Mark Primack at 12.6%, and Mark Fogel at 5.7%.
PJ, I wondered if you could look up a couple more races for us. I'm curious about Watsonville, what the races are there for City Council.
Okay, Watsonville City Council, District 1, Emmanuel Bursimmon, 63.8%, Gabriel Gonzalez, 36.2%. For District 2, Oscar Rios, 63.9%, Richard De La Paz Jr., 37.8%. In District 6, Judy Doreen Nielsen, 97% of the vote. That's with 2 out of 5 precincts reporting. Any other areas you'd like to look at?
Well, I'm always curious how Santa Cruz County voted in the national presidential election. Could you break those down for us just real quick? It's always nice to know how we came out.
All right. In terms, we have 181, again, of 279 precincts reporting. Kerry Edwards has 73% of the vote. Bush Cheney has 24.6%. And in terms of U.S. Senator, Barbara Boxer has 70.7% of the vote, and Bill Jones has 23.9%.
And how is Anna Eshoo doing?
She's getting 63.5% of the vote against Chris Hagen, who's getting 32.1%.
So once again, Santa Cruz County bucking the national trend completely by sweeping in Democrats right and left, except in the Abel Maldonado race, which is turning out quite differently tonight with him in the lead.
Right, at 54.6% statewide.
We have a couple of other city council races we can check on. Scotts Valley has 4 people running for 3 seats.
All right, let's hear about that. That's Randy Johnson has 30.7%. Denny Butchie has 29%. Cliff Barrett, I believe, is 23%. And Debbie Moose has 17.3%.
Thank you for checking on those. In just a moment, we'll be joined by City Council candidates. Hopefully, Scott Kennedy and Emily Reilly will be on the phone with us shortly. In the meantime, pardon me, we're going to check on some other local results and give you them right now. What about Monterey County? How is the supervisor's race shaping up between Parker and Smith?
Okay. Now, we don't have as many precincts reporting there. You asked about the supervisor's race?
Monterey County supervisors,
Okay, let's see. County Supervisor, 4th District, Jane Parker has 47% of the vote. Jerry Smith has 52% of the vote.
And how many precincts are reporting on that, did you say?
37 out of 54 precincts.
So that could change. That's an interesting one to watch.
60%, I guess.
And once again, that race has been characterized by some pretty big growth issues. Talking about Rancho San Juan and a lot of the issues around whether to expand new developments around Monterey County in the general plan. So that will be one to watch as well. And just a note to listeners, we will be going to wrap up of both local and statewide results tomorrow at 11 o'clock. We'll be running a 2-hour special with Amy Goodman and Democracy Now!, wrapping up the national elections tomorrow from 9 to 11 with a special 2-hour broadcast from Democracy Now! And Ann Goodman. That's tomorrow morning here on Central Coast Public Radio, KUSP. We'll also be wrapping up the evening with National Public Radio News at the bottom of the hour, so stay tuned.
Additionally, on Thursday's Talk of the Bay at 10 a.m., that'll be a chance for us all to meet on the air and talk about what we think about how this election went and what do we do from here. And that'll be Thursday's Talk of the Bay, a community conversation about the election on Central Coast Public Radio.
When you look at the maps for the national elections, I think it's interesting when you see the wall of red to think about the reasons the exit polls said people voted Republican this time around, and so-called moral issues seem to have trumped economic issues, 2-1 every time. And I don't understand what those moral issues meant except to be a code word for abortion, and that the evangelicals came out in droves. So people voting their conscience in this one, not their pocketbook, a very interesting result. We're going completely back to local from a very national discussion right there with Emily Reilly, who is celebrating right now, I bet, because she is the top vote getter. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
You must be very...
Yes, we're celebrating. We've just been going around from one place to another.
And how are you feeling about the other people running right now? There's a lot of uncertainty about how many votes they have since we haven't gotten all the precincts. But you and Ryan Coonerty seem to be the winners so far in this election.
Yeah, it does seem that from what the people who are paying closer attention than I are saying, that does look likely at this point. And so I'm real happy about that. And I'm interested to see, regardless of how it ends up, 7 people on the city council are all people who are dedicated to the city, and it's going to be a challenging job for all of us, regardless of who the 7 people end up being.
Yeah, I know that right after the day after you celebrate, then you have to roll up your sleeves and work.
Yeah, exactly.
The hard part. What are the first things you're going to tackle when you're back in the office, whenever it is?
Well, I think for me, we've been very fortunate in the past few months to realize that we weren't going to have to make some of the budget cuts that we feared we would have to make. At the same time, have labor negotiations in front of us, as well as an uncertain picture of what the state's going to be doing. So I'm real eager to see how things come through on the state level first.
Are you talking about 1A?
How's 1A doing? Yeah, how's 1A?
How is 1A doing, PJ? Do you have a stat on it so far statewide?
Yes, let me get to that right away, but go
Yeah,
on.
we'll let you know just a second. We'll check out.
Okay.
We've been giving regular results on the council races all up and down our region, so we've got that one for you. Do you?
Okay, yes. Yes gets 86.3%, no 13.7%.
Well, that is really good news.
That's with about half of the
That's really good news. I'm really happy to hear that. We need to be able to know what to expect. It's not even not having enough money is hard, but not knowing how much money you're going to have, it's just crazy trying to do budgeting that way. So that's just really great news.
That's going to do a lot.
And I'm hoping it looks like Measure J is being defeated as well, and I'm really hoping that this will bring us to a point where we can sit down and talk about a way that we can make transportation changes in Santa Cruz County that are really sustainable and just good for the future,
We hear a lot of...
I'm sorry, I'm hesitating because we just got back to the restaurant where we're having our party, and they've locked us out.
Oh, no. That's not a good sign.
Okay.
Well, when you get in, when you get the key, you can stop talking to us. We have just about another minute anyway. So
Okay.
if you don't mind me keeping you're not out in the cold or the rain. I just wanted to ask you one more question. In Santa Cruz, we bandy around the term progressive a lot, and sometimes we forget what that really means, but it does seem like the kind of slate that was being put out by SCAN and other people, vote progressive, seemed to have you at the top and Ryan Coonerty. And I wonder how you interpret, that kind of endorsement. How do you see it as some sort of hope that they're placing in you?
I don't know I don't know how many people define progressive. And I think the fact that if I do, in fact, end up coming in first or second again this time, I think it's because I am the only woman running, and I have a business, as you know, and I'm also really concerned about environmental issues. So it's not so much that I think someone gets defined as the best progressive, but more whether or not you make your decisions based on community values. And to me, that's what being progressive really means.
Well,
and
Emily,
I think that...
I don't know if you want to stay on the line for just a brief second more where we can give you the city council results that we have thus far just to update you, or whether you're already updated, but PJ can give those to you really quick.
Okay, I'd love that. Thank you.
Okay, real fast, PJ.
Okay, this is with 34 of 43 precincts reporting. Emily, you have 20.6%. Ryan Coonerty, 19.2%. Tony Madrigal, 14.7%. Ed Porter, 13.7%. Scott Kennedy, 13.2%. Mark Primack, 12.7%. And Mark Fogel, 5.7%.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
And we're going to National Public Radio News next, and we'll be giving you an update on the national election as well as several of the statewide races. And then at the top of the hour, the California Report comes your way on Central Coast Public Radio, KUSP.
Amid reports of some of the heaviest voting in decades, the presidential election is coming down to a few key states.
But the race is still undecided. The crucial battleground state of Ohio and 6 other states remain in play.
3 Senate races are still too close to call, so the GOP has retained control of both houses of Congress.
From NPR News in Washington, this is live coverage of election 2004. Bob Benenson is the political editor at Congressional Quarterly and joins us now from the magazine's election headquarters in Washington. Bob, I want to talk to you first a little bit about the turnout, the fact that the high voter turnout, it may be that we're looking at 122,000 people turned out to vote.
Yep.
The experts said that would mean a pretty sure victory for John Kerry. There's nothing sure about this, and at the moment, it seems very uncertain.
No, exactly. And any claims of certainty about what the expanded turnout would mean we're a little bit premature, because we just didn't know, and that was what made predicting this election and what made polling in this election so difficult. It looks like both parties succeeded in driving more of their base voters to the polls in almost equivalent numbers. The Republicans may have had a little bit more success, which tipped some of these very close Senate races in their advantage. But right now, it looks like the electoral map of the country is going to be almost identical to the way it was in 2000.
I want to ask you about that, because really the big surprise is there is no surprise, or at least there's not much change from the election 4 years ago.
Exactly, and it just strikes me that in looking also at the House races, where virtually very few incumbents, literally less than a handful, were defeated, and hardly any open seats changed hands. It just seems that the public, they're not happy. The polls say that over and over again. They don't. They're the right track. We're on track in the country is way up, but they just don't know if change is the right course.
Interesting, though, that you bring out this many voters. People are definitely energized. They are certainly engaged in this election, and yet their opinion doesn't seem to have changed very much. Does that seem odd to you?
I don't know if it seems odd to me. It just seems like we're really, really frozen in this situation. Maybe it's a 51-49 nation now, but there's by no stretch of the imagination, are we looking at a 54-55% advantage for one party or the other, particularly for the Republicans, who are running things right now in Washington, and if President Bush manages to win these last crucial electoral votes, will do so in the future. They'll declare a mandate, and they'll try and govern with a mandate, but I'm not sure if this election suggests that there's overwhelming public support for a Republican agenda.
All right, Bob Benson, the political editor at Congressional Quarterly. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Well, Democrats did not pick up many seats in the Senate tonight, but they did manage to defend most of their endangered incumbents, among them Patty Murray in Washington State. She defeated Congressman George Nethercutt, who's best known for defeating then House Speaker Tom Foley in 1994. Here's Patty Murray.
I think the loudest message that has come through to me, that people want our state guided, not by anger and by fear, but by hope and opportunity. And that was the message you sent tonight. You know, you see my big family behind me here tonight. It's my secret weapon in politics. My grandfather came here to the state 88 years ago to raise his family. And then my mom and dad raised 7 kids. They're all with me tonight, and their kids. And we learned along the way that it was our responsibility as adults to make sure we passed on a better world to the generation coming behind us. That's what this election is about. This election tonight and your votes mean whether or not your kids will have a good education and go on to college, whether or not you will have health care, accessible, affordable health care, whether or not our seniors can count on a prescription drug that works for them, whether or not our veterans will get the care that they deserve so much. That's what this election said, and you said we want our families in our state to be first. Thank you.
That was Democratic Senator Patty Murray speaking tonight in Seattle. She has won her 3rd term in the United States Senate. So we sit at 2:35 in the morning Eastern Time with 249 electoral votes for President Bush, 221 for Senator Kerry, 68 still to be counted. Of course, they're in the closest states, swing states, Ohio, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, New Mexico, and Nevada.
This is live election coverage from NPR News. I'm Frank Stasio.
And I'm Jennifer Ludden. For months, the nation has been watching Ohio, and we're still watching Ohio. The president is leading there, but the race is too close to call. There are many provisional ballots still to be counted. If President Bush wins Ohio, he will be just 1 electoral vote short of victory over John Kerry.
Other Midwest battlegrounds also still in play are Wisconsin, Michigan, and Iowa. So are Nevada, New Mexico in the west. And Florida is projected to be a win for President Bush. Senator Kerry has apparently won other hotly contested states, Pennsylvania and Minnesota.
The Republicans appear set to boost their majorities in Congress. Senate Minority Leader Tom Daschle is struggling to hold on to his seat in South Dakota. In Alaska, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski is leading her race, and Republican Mel Martinez holds a lead so far in the Florida Senate race.
Well, as you said, Nevada is still in play. NPR's John McChesney is at a Nevada Republican State Party event at Mandalay Bay Resort in Las Vegas. John, how do you pull this duty? That's pretty good. You're at the Bay Resort.
I just want to respond to my colleague in Alaska who made a crack about the Mandalay Bay. It's not all caviar and champagne here. We're talking beef chunks and chicken legs. So.
No, okay. Well, my heart goes out to you, John. But
this is a real cliffhanger here still. And we've got 54% of the precincts reporting, and it's showing John Kerry with a very narrow lead. You have to understand, Nevada, 91% are urban, and it's split between Clark County here in Las Vegas and Washoe County up in Reno. In Clark County, Kerry is carrying this place by 52 to 47%, and up in Washoe County, 51 to 48% in favor of Kerry. That's a surprise. That's Republican territory up there. Apparently, the Yucca Mountain nuclear waste site issue has carried a lot of weight for Kerry in this state. AP reports that in exit polls, 2/3 of the people said the nuclear waste site was very important to them. So that may explain why it's such a tight race out here with Senator Kerry sort of on the top edge, but who knows where it's going to go.
You said that most of the state is urban, and about 54% of the vote has been counted. Where are most of these votes? Are they urban votes, or are they from the outlying areas?
No, most of these are urban votes. This is 91% urban in the state of Nevada. Now, there are vast stretches of this state which are cattle ranches and deserts.
So with the exception of the area you just mentioned outside of those areas, the Republican strongholds still have not reported that.
Yes, and the interesting thing is these Republicans have been celebrating, as you might imagine, the president's victories in a lot of states, but they have yet to have a strong local victory. They have Democratic Senator Harry Reid trounced his opponent, and so he may replace Tom Daschle as the Senate minority leader. So far, the Republicans here have had national triumph and local defeats, except for one House seat.
All right, NPR's John McChesney speaking to us from a Nevada Republican State Party event at Mandalay Bay Resort Hotel in Las Vegas.
And we head east now to Boston, where NPR's Scott Horsley joins us from Copley Square. Hi, Scott.
Hello, Jennifer. Good to be with you.
And you are surrounded by a large group of Terry Edwards supporters. Senator Edwards just had a very few brief comments a few moments ago. What was the point